Mr. Clerk, we are reporting out of closed session. We have one item.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, reporting out of closed session this evening. The one item, the motion is to receive the report and that confidential to direction to staff be confirmed.
Someone like to move that?
I'll move.
Moved by Councillor Humphries, seconded by Councillor Kim. Comments or questions? Seeing none, recorded vote, Mr. Clerk.
Recorded vote has been requested for the first item, or the only item of council reporting out of closed session. Councillor Thompson, how do you vote?
Yes. Yes.
Thank you. Councillor Kim?
Yes.
Thank you. Is Councillor Gilliland on the call?
No, not yet.
Okay. And same with Councillor Gardner.
I think they're coming in right now. So
Okay. I'll just give them a second then.
Councillor Gilliland, we're just voting on the recommendation coming out of closed session. It's on your screen if you can see it.
Yep.
Okay, Councillor, how do you vote?
Yes.
Okay, Councillor Gardner, you there?
Doesn't look like she's there, Mr. Clerk.
Okay, Councillor Humphries,
Yes.
Mayor Maracas,
Yes.
and Councillor Gallo.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Confirming bylaw. Someone like to move that?
Mayor.
Councillor Humphries, second. Councillor Thompson. All those in favor?
Favor.
Opposed? That carries. Motion to adjourn. Moved by Councillor Humphries, seconded by Councillor Gilliland. All those in favor? Opposed? That carries. We are adjourned. So we'll move to our regular meeting now. So Mr. Clerk, it is 7:03. I am going to call this council meeting to order. Council, if I can get a motion to approve the agenda with the added items. Councillor Humphries, seconded by Councillor Gilliland. Any comments or questions on that? Seeing none, all those. Oh, Mr. Clerk, are we recording vote for everything today?
Yes, please.
Recorded vote.
Recorded votes being requested for the item of council approving the agenda this evening. Councillor Kim, how do you vote?
Yes.
Councillor Gilliland?
She'll be here in a minute.
Okay. Councillor Thompson?
Yes.
Councillor Gardner?
Yes.
Councillor Gallo?
Yes, I was on mute. Sorry.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Gilliland. Councillor Gallo?
Yes.
Councillor Humphries?
Yes.
Mayor Maracas?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Any declarations of pecuniary interest? Seeing none. Delegations, we do have one delegation this evening. It's going to be our first electronic delegation, so we'll see how this works out. We have Mitch McGuire, resident, and it's in regards to item R2. Mr. Clerk, I'll let you bring in Mr. McGuire.
Excellent. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, there's Mr. McGuire, and I will turn it over to him. And of course, yourself.
Thank you. Mr. McGuire, thanks for joining us this evening. You'll have 5 minutes. I'll let you know when you get to... Oh, there you are. Sorry, I thought you disappeared. You jumped on my screen. Sorry, Mitch. So I'll let you know when we get down to about a minute, and then we'll move into any questions or comments from each of the councilors. Okay. So, floor is yours, Mitch.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and councilors. As you know, says the parking at 147, 145 Wellington has always been an issue from the beginning. So hopefully I can clarify some of the confusion around all the different numbers that have been coming up. And I will start with the presentation from Mark Schmig from the Tuesday, March the 3rd General Committee meeting. He did mention several times a parking rate of 1.1, but of course they've always referenced their parking survey was 1.03. And yes, they're only going to allow one parking space to all the new tenants. And he said total of 267 parking spaces on site with 5 vacant apartments. He originally said 5%, but corrected himself to 5, and said that there was a total of 22 available parking spaces, and that there was only 11 visitors in the 267. Now, if you take his number of 22 available parking spaces from the 247 available tenant spaces, that leaves 225, which is a parking rate of 1.1. But if you account for, there's also 5 vacancies, so that's a possible 5 other cars, that brings that total up to 230 vehicles with the parking rate of 1.13, nowhere near his 1.03. And of course, it's from the very beginning, 247 parking spots for tenants assigned, 11 visitors, 7 barrier free, and 2 employees. The 2 employees I could have added into the tenant ones, but I've always ignored it from the very beginning. Now, when our property was originally built 40 plus years ago, it still had the 1.5 parking ratio requirement in the bylaws, but an exception was made to allow 2 buildings, and they dropped the parking rate down to 1.3 because that gives us our proper numbers. Now, originally, there was about 237 some odd tenant spots. None of them were numbered, or it was just tenant areas. And we had approximately 25 visitor spots along our back fence on the south side of the property. And those 25 spaces got cut down to 11 when they moved all the visitor parking to the front. But I mean, the 1.3 was a drop from the 1.5. The 1.03 is really almost impossible. Now, they've always been saying they only needed to supply 265 parking spots for all the tenants, including all the future tenants. But that's working from their original formula of 1.03 with only adding 53 townhouses. They changed their numbers several times for the number of townhouses that were being built. I believe the first go around was 64. They went back, they reorganized it, they dropped it down to 53. Then they came back again, reoriented one building, and now they're up to 56. But that's where they came up with their magic 265 spots needed for tenants. That does not work with what the current usage is, because if we have approximately 230 current needed, and if they're only supplying 265, those 56 new townhomes, they get a whopping 35 parking spots. That's it. So almost half of them don't get the park. That's just not right. Now, from his 53, it is 56 because TJ did, I guess he misspoke. He got it wrong. He said total of 260 units, including 53 townhomes, which was the previous plan. But it is 56. So there's no way there's enough parking. And for the handicap parking, I went through I've been going saying we need 7. A friend of mine read through it with me and found out it's visitor parking, so I can't say that they have to give us that many. But one of the things that Starlight has done in December of 2018, they instituted paid parking for visitors. So all the visitors had to pay for parking at a rate of $1.50 per half hour or less, to daily maximum of 6. They did eventually pull out the parking meters at the beginning of the year, and they put in new rules in February this year. But visitor parking, we're only allowed to have the same visitor 10 times. Anything over 10 times, it'll be rejected, so they're not allowed to park, and they could be tagged and towed. And that's just not right. But once again, it's the numbers don't add up. And my timer just went off for 5 minutes.
Very good timing, Mitch. Appreciate that. Thank you very much. Council, can I get a motion to receive and refer to item R2? Councillor Gardner, second. Councillor Thompson, comments or questions for the delegation? Councillor Gallo, you're up. There you go.
Thank you. I did want to thank you for all the work that you've done so far. It's actually opened up my eyes, and I've reviewed every video and every report, and I'll be speaking to that when the item comes. I just wanted to just to hear from you in terms of, because the report really speaks to current conditions and puts a lot of weight towards current conditions, and they've taken, I think, 2, maybe 3 kind of snapshots various times of the day and various days. Could you speak to that aspect and what they've done?
Oh, you mean for the parking survey? I don't know how they came up with the low numbers, because I mean, from my logical point of view, they never needed to do a survey. The property management company, we register every single vehicle showing ownership and insurance with the property manager, and they assign us a numbered parking spot. So they have an exact count at all times of exactly how many tenants are using parking spots.
Counselor?
Okay, that's fine. I mean, I have a lot of questions as to the way they calculated the usage, but I'll speak to all of that when the item comes up. Thank you for everything you've done.
Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor Gallo. Counselor, actually, I got Counselor Gardner first and then Counselor Thompson. Counselor Gardner, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to go back to the visitor parking issue to the delegate. The proposal is to add 15 spots. From what you said, there is already an issue with not having enough visitor parking, which is why they've tried to do the paid parking and the 10 times per month. Is that your take on this as well? That just it's because there isn't enough visitor parking now?
Mr. McGuire?
No, there's never been enough visitor parking when they dropped it down to 11. We've had since they did that in 2018, a lot of people have actually come home and found cars not belonging on the property in their parking spot. And when we've contacted the office, they've said, well, park somewhere else. The visitors, there's never enough parking with only 11 spots. That accounts for all the tradespeople and all the visitors for 204 apartments. 11 just doesn't cut it. So they would just take any other spot they wanted. And it was a cascade. One tenant lost a spot, so he was told to park somewhere else, and he had to take somebody else's spot.
I'm sorry, it's not funny. It's just crazy. Okay, that's what I have for the moment.
Okay, thank you. Counselor Thompson.
Thank you.
One sec, sorry. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. McGuire, for participating in tonight's meeting. Just a quick question. Certainly you've done a tremendous amount of work on it, but in your estimation, how many total parking spaces are needed? Is it the 294 you referenced in the presentation, or what's your thoughts on the total number needed?
Total number needed, if they kept it at the 1.3, well, sorry, I have the numbers on one of the pages. I mean, keeping at the current ratio, they'd need 338. That allows for 300, which allows for room for growth, and we're going to lose some spots for come winter time. In some winters, we've lost 10 spots for parking. But if they did 1.3 with 260 units, they'd need 338 spots, which would be 300 tenants, 34 visitors, and four accessible. That would be sufficient, or drop the number of townhomes they're building.
Sure.
Councilor?
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions for the delegate? Seeing none, Mr. McGuire, thank you very much for joining us. And I believe that they're going to send you out, and then you'll be able to watch the rest through the live stream.
Thank you very much for the opportunity.
No, thank you very much for coming and all the work that you've done. We appreciate it. Have yourself a great night and stay safe.
You too.
Thank you. All right, Council, if I guess I'll call the vote on receiving that and referring it to item R2. Mr. Clerk, call the vote.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Record a vote for receiving the presentation from the delegate. Councillor Gilliland, how do you vote?
Oh, one sec.
Yes.
Thank you.
Counselor Gardner? Counselor Gardner, are you there?
Hold on.
Oh,
I'm
sorry.
not on mute.
Yeah, okay. Sorry about that. How do you vote?
Okay. Yes, please. Yes.
Counselor- Okay, thank you. Counselor Thompson?
Yes.
Thank you. Counselor Humphreys?
Yes.
Counselor Kim?
Counselor, can you say again, please?
Yeah, yes.
Thank you.
Counselor Gallo?
Yes.
And Mayor Maracus?
Yes,
Thank you. The motion carries.
thank you. Council, just before I move to the consent agenda, I did want us to just take a moment of silence so we can honor and remember the lives of those who have died and have been injured in the workplace across Canada and worldwide, because today is National Day of Mourning. So if we could just take a moment of silence. Thank you, Council. So we'll move to consent agenda. Anyone have any questions or would want to pull anything from the consent agenda? Otherwise, I'll ask for someone to move C1 to C5. Councillor Gardner, go ahead.
Sorry,
Did you
I'm
have something
okay.
you wanted to pull? No,
I
you're
want an
okay?
S. I just want an S. Thank you.
You want to ask a question?
No, I'm waiting for the S items, as in Sam.
Oh, okay, thank you. So would someone like to move C1 to approve C1 to C5? Councillor Gilliland, seconded by Councillor Thompson. Call the vote, Mr. Clerk.
Before I vote for the approval of the consent agenda, Counselor Gardner, how do you vote?
Yes.
Counselor Gilliland?
Yes.
Counselor Humphreys?
Yes.
Counselor Gallo?
Yes.
Mayor Maracus?
Yes,
Counselor Thompson?
Yes.
Counselor Kim?
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you.
thank you, Mr. Clerk. So we'll move to standing committee reports. Councillor Gardner, did you want to pull something on that?
Yes, please. SR1.
SR1. Anything else?
Nope.
No? Does anybody else would like to pull anything from or have a question in regards to the standing committee report? Seeing none, so would someone like to move that we approve standing committee report S1 minus R1, SR1? Councillor Gilliland, second. Councillor Thompson. Mr. Clerk, call a vote.
Recorded vote for the general committee report from April the 14th, with the exception of R1. Counselor Gardner, how do you vote?
Yes.
Counselor Gilliland?
Yes.
Counselor Gallo?
Yes.
Mayor Maracus?
Yes.
Counselor Thompson?
Yes.
Counselor Kim?
Yes.
And Counselor Humphreys.
Yes.
Motion carries.
It's carried. Thank you, Mr. Clerk. So, Council, I'd recommend that we do R2 first. If everyone's okay with that. Because I got a feeling we'll probably have a long discussion about R1, so we might as well get R2 out of the way since we just had a delegation in regards to it. So everyone okay with that?
Yes.
All right. Mr. Clerk, I don't need a motion to just switch that around, do I?
No, you don't, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. So we'll go to our item R2, the application for zoning bylaw amendments, Starlight Investments, 145 and 147 Wellington Street West. This was deferred from the special meeting of council on March 31st. Would someone like to move the recommendation? Councillor Kim, seconded by Councillor Gilliland. I will go to Councillor Gallo. He's got his hand up first. Councillor Gallo.
Thank you, Mayor. I went back all the way and reviewed all of the videos. I reread all of the reports, and I wanted to go through all of it with you, particularly starting at the public planning meeting, I believe. Well, I'm not sure the exact date, but anyways, the public planning meeting that this council had on it, and May 22nd, 2019. We had many questions, as you all know. The delegate had presented, and many others also presented, and we ended up the meeting basically all of us agreeing that parking was an issue. And we agreed to send it to a general committee for further discussion and revisions. I think if you all will recall, it was virtually unanimous that we all had an issue with parking, and we sent them back asking them to revisit it. And I agreed with you, Mr. Mayor, and you had said that, should this come back to GC in the way it was presented, that you wouldn't support it. And I think we all agreed with you, and I certainly did. So it did come back to GC, and I'll apologize that I didn't, I guess, dig enough or understand it enough when the report came back to GC. There wasn't a lot of discussion. There was a presentation by the planner, and I think the VP of the development company, and they presented the revised, I guess, application, and again, not much discussion. And we voted to have it move forward to council. And then we postponed it again to tonight. So I reread everything, and at the public planning meeting, as I mentioned, we were all very concerned. The numbers of units and parking were 256 units and 294 parking spots at the public planning meeting. And that was what we were disappointed with and wanted some adjustments, because we had all agreed that that wasn't sufficient. So I reread everything, and the GC that came forward, believe it or not, the actual unit count went up by 3 units. And the parking numbers only went up by 1. So to me, and I don't know how I missed it, but I did. Maybe we all did. I don't know. You can speak on your behalf. But if we're sending a developer back saying 257 units and 294 parking spots was not acceptable, and they come back with us with 260 units, 3 more units, and only 1 more additional parking, to me, it doesn't make sense how we could have approved that at GC without any further comments. Quite frankly, I reread all the reports and I saw the videos, and the planning consultant failed to mention any of that. And it's also quite buried in the report. It's on page 5 of 12 of the March 3rd, 2020 GC, where it has bullet points in terms of what the changes are, and it's clear. It says 3 additional units, and it has a number of 295 parking spots. So I'm disappointed. I'm disappointed in myself that I didn't catch it back then. I'm glad we have an opportunity now to take a look at this, because I don't know how we can, as a council, at a public planning meeting, unanimously say there's some parking issues. Perhaps not the number of units, but there's some parking issues. And then a report comes back to us at general committee with 3 extra units and only 1 extra parking. We already established that 295.
Council, I've actually at past 5. So if you wanted to continue on a second time,
Sure.
thank you. Is there anyone else that wants to speak to this? I'm not seeing any hands. Otherwise, I'm going to go back to Councillor Gardner. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Following on that, with respect to the tenant parking, I'm actually quite confused by the report, because the developer said at the meeting on the 3rd that there are 247 spots, which we know 22 are not being used, so therefore they're not required. 5 are vacant. We'll have to give at the standard of whatever 1.1. You know, those tenants can have a parking space. That actually comes to 230 units. And that's what was said by the delegate on March the 3rd. If we're adding 56 townhomes and we're putting in place 26 parking spots, which is only 15 more than is now, and we know we have a problem now, and we're adding accessible, that comes up to 317 spots that are required. Now, Councillor Gilliland reminded me that when the developer was presenting at one of the public planning meetings, he did say that not all of the 56 units would be able to have a spot. Some would be rented without any parking. So I'm looking at the zoning bylaw. This is an R2A. It says 1 building per building lot. We've already intensified this lot 100% because we've added another building. We, in our zoning bylaw, in our old one and in the new one that was passed in 2017, we did a lot of work on that. We decided that the correct parking standard is 1.5, giving some residents opportunity for 2 cars, some for 1, some for none. It gives some adaptability. And that's what we decided as staff and as a council, that is in the best interest of the residents who live in this apartment RA2 zone. So I don't understand how we could have gone from that to saying a 1.1 standard is acceptable. You know, it happens in Toronto. Is that what we want for Aurora? That's not what I want for Aurora. So I think this all needs to be reworked. And Mr. Mayor, how many minutes do I have left?
Mr. Clark?
3, Mr. Mayor, 2 minutes left.
2 minutes left.
Thank you. So with respect to these rental units, the region of York has been talking about rental units since I've been on council. And mostly they're talking about affordable rental units. These units are affordable. The 2-bedroom is rented out at $1,300 a month. You know, we need to provide these affordable units. When Starlight fixes up the apartments, and I think it's relatively cosmetic fixing up, The same two-bedroom apartment is being rented out for $2,300 wrong, $2,200 a month. It's $900 a month and more, and they have to pay hydro and parking extra. So we, by approving this development, we are taking this from affordable rental units to the next level. And Mr. Mayor, you said it yourself, we need affordable rental. We're desperate for affordable rental. So why would we approve a development that has the proven intent to take these rents up to a limit that is not affordable for our residents that need them? Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Gilliland? One sec. Not unmuting for some reason. There you go.
Perfect. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Mr. Waters. Mr. Waters, is the current parking strategy that's being offered to the tenants now, is it compliant with what is mandated to our bylaws?
Mr. Waters?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, as Councillor Gartner had noted in her submission, the parking that's currently provided on site is below what the RA2 zone requires. And I can't speak to why that was. That's an historical thing. And through the 2017 update of the zoning bylaw, there was never a site-specific zone applied to this property. It was just left as our RA2 for whatever reason. So at the moment, it does not meet current standards.
Councillor?
So what, thank you. And so when the report came back and had determined that it was sufficient at a 1.03, how is that reflective to the situation now? Because I think they're claiming 1.1 and being over compliant. Is that correct?
Mr. Waters?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, Starlight had retained a transportation planning consultant to undertake a parking study to determine what the actual parking should be, given the fact that there are two buildings on site and they are proposing to do stacked townhousing. So based on the study, which was undertaken back in 2017, 2018, there were 4 visits on site to determine parking demand. They had determined through that analysis that there was the demand for about 271 parking spaces, which included visitor as well as part of that. And they have come back at the moment with a proposal for 295 spaces, which equates to the 1.1 ratio.
Councillor?
Thank you. And as far as the accessible spots, are they over compliant?
Mr. Waters?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, that is correct. They, I believe, based on our current parking standards for barrier-free spots, they're permitted to do 1 at the moment. That's what they have to comply with. They've provided 4, so we have 3 additional spots.
Councillor?
Thank you. And just to kind of clarify once again, so with the current parking strategy they have right now, none of the current tenants that are there will be losing a spot.
Through Mr. Mayor. Through Mr. Mayor, yes, that is correct. What I've been told by Starlight is that those who have 1 or more spaces will keep those until they leave the property. Any new rentals, both in the existing 2 buildings and in the future stacked towns, will be assigned 1 parking space only, and there'll be full disclosure of that.
Thank you. And to you, Mr. Mayor, to Mr. Waters, I think I recollect at some point in one of the meetings that the owners of the buildings said that the new townhouses, some of them may not have parking just out of the fact that some of them might be utilized with the original tenants and such. And it was full disclosure that they were not going to have a spot rented. Is that correct? Am I correct in that that memory of that meeting?
Mr. Waters?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I don't recall that conversation. I was in the impression that there would be one spot assigned to each of the new stacked townhouse units.
Okay, I stand corrected on that. I just kind of wanted to make a comment, and perhaps you can offer some clarity, Mr. Waters. Councillor Gallo was talking about one of the meetings that we were engaged in about some of the issues in parking and how we all agreed that there was some issues, but I believe that was kind of collaboration of everything with construction and snow, and there was no parking as far as, the overflow, and that was really a big issue, as well as Aurora High School and the street and such. So I think that was kind of like an overarching issue that we all kind of agreed on, but not necessarily the formula that was presented from the developer. Am I correct in that?
Mr. Waters?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes, I believe you are correct with that. I think the other issues that were raised were the outdoor pool and the proximity of the building to the outdoor pool as well. Those issues in terms of parking supply and the ratio were really not discussed that thoroughly, but there was an issue. I recall there was an issue raised about parking in general. Yes.
Thank you.
Counselor?
And the risk of, not going forward with this today, what are those consequences of turning that down?
Mr. Waters?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, my understanding is that if the proposal as presented tonight for the bylaw is either rejected or returned to staff, there likely would be an appeal to the LPAT.
Thank you. And going to LPAT could obviously mean a various number of things, and there could be some risks like losing some amenities. I'm being subjective here, not really understanding the full picture, but what are some of those risks going to LPAT that we should be aware of? Through you, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, Mr. Waters, sorry.
Sorry, through you, Mr. Mayor. Well, the proposal could change significantly. They could be asking for more density on the site than what is before you tonight. If they have to go to the LPAT, I can't, again, that's just speculation at this point in time, or they may just go forward with what they have in front of you and get an arbitrator to make the decision.
Great, thank you.
Counselor?
Thank you. I mean, I am listening to both sides and understand the delegate and the concerns of the parking. From what I understand, everybody's guaranteed a parking spot. No one is losing a parking spot, and full disclosure that people will get a parking spot with their unit, not necessarily two. As much as I would like to say that a 1.5 is great, if the consultant or the traffic analysis had said that the demand was a 1.03 and we were being over compliant at 1.1, I have to believe that we're following the experts and the demand that's being shown. If some of the residents were losing parking spots, perhaps maybe I'd feel a different tune, but in this particular instance, I kind of feel like if everybody's getting their spots and the units that are going to be developed will also have one, I kind of feel like there is a bit of a win-win. I understand they are doing a lot of renovations and they are cleaning up the place and making it look really great. So I actually think that's a great advantage to the community. But I don't really want to sway in that direction too much, because really at the end of the day, it just becomes about parking. So going forward with the information I have today, although I'm going to listen to what my other colleagues have to say, I'm okay with what's being presented by the developer, but in the sense that they're over compliant, in which the professional experts have brought to us today, and the original residents aren't losing anything. So I feel comfortable with what I'm being presented, but I would like to hear more what my council members have to say.
Thank you, Councillor. I have Councillor Kim next, and then Councillor Thompson, and then Councillor Humphreys.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think if I recall from the GC meeting from last year, certainly parking was brought up, and parking is always a core issue because, by default, we always want more parking, and you can never have enough. And so that was certainly an item that was raised. But something for me that was equally, if not greater concern, was during the transition period, during the construction. And, that along with the amenities. And I think, in the last 12 to 18 months, Starlight has accommodated with respect to the amenities, with respect to, spending some capital to have some reserve spots available at the church on the north and slightly west of the site in question, to handle any parking concerns in the transition. Those were the main concerns that I recall, but certainly parking, by default again, I wanted more parking if possible. But I thought that during the 12 to 18 months, Starlight did accommodate most of our requests. I think with respect to, the philosophy of affordable housing, we'd all like affordable housing. At the same time, there's a delicate balance between those who are going to build housing and those who are going to occupy them. And if those who are going to build them are not going to have the numbers to warrant building them, it's not going to be there. I guess what I'm getting at is that we've already identified that existing tenants are not going to be losing any parking spots. That stays the same. There's full disclosure, as that was already mentioned a couple of times, with the new tenants in the future townhouse development, that they're only going to have one. And I understand that Mr. McGuire had concerns over the future tenants, but future tenants know what they're getting into. So I don't think that should be a concern. In terms of, if I were to look at Starlight's perspective, sure, I know Councillor Gardner mentioned that, when a tenant leaves, then certainly Starlight can refurbish the unit and rent it out for a greater amount. I mean, that's really not an item to be, that's not the issue that's being discussed here. I think, the merits of the plan, I think is fine. I'm ready to go ahead and go with the staff recommendation. If there's continued parking issues, and it seems like it's like he said, she said, in terms of what exactly is the right number being built or which study is correct. And I think that can be discussed in the site plan process, which can be done after decisions made here. So I don't think there's sufficient reason enough to hold off on approving this. So I'm fine with going ahead with the staff recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Kim. Councillor Thompson.
Thank you. Through you to Mr. Waters. Just to sort of recap the parking standard, I believe you stated that the original RA zoning called for a 1.5 standard. Currently, they don't meet that standard, but it's somewhere around 1.3 based on Mr. McGuire's information he presented tonight. And then if you look at the application, based on the 295 spots, if we believe that's the right number, then the standard's now 1.1. I guess I want to understand the town's traffic analysis and the process they go to verify the study and challenge the assumptions, because we're talking about a 15% reduction in the current standard. And so perhaps you can walk me a little bit through what the town's traffic analysis did to not only review, but maybe challenge any of those assumptions and or verify the information being presented.
Mr. Waters.
For you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, I'll try to do my best to walk the councillor through the process. So first of all, the study is submitted by a qualified transportation planning firm. So we would review the report, we would validate the data that's within there. And in this case, there were 2 on-site surveys undertaken of the property. What we asked for is 2 additional surveys to be undertaken and to include a weekend as well. So we wanted to understand what the demand was for the weekend as well. And that period of time was from 10 p.m. to 2 a.m. So a lot of people are coming and going on the weekend. So we asked for that information. We also asked the the consultant to provide examples of similar sites in similar situations so that we would have a benchmarking understanding so that we could validate their numbers with what was actually on site in other locations. So through that analysis, through that review, it was determined that the study was supportable and that the parking did identify the peak demand of about 275 spots in total and about 26 visitor spots as well.
Thank you. Just as a follow-up, and so was there not any concerns expressed by our analysts with regards to the reductions, or they just sort of accepted the conclusions of the consultant en masse?
Mr. Waters?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. No, we did ask some questions, and we did wanted the traditional surveys be done to sort of expand the time frame that they did do the parking survey on site. And once that was done, it was accepted by staff as being a bona fide study that we could support the numbers.
Thank you.
Councillor?
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Humphries?
Thank you to you, Mr. Mayor. Some of my colleagues asked many good questions that I had in mind. Just to reiterate, Councillor Gallow's comments have had me thinking. I'm going through and glancing through some of my notes from the previous meetings. I know that we had several concerns. One of them that I felt was loud and clear during the planning meeting was the concern of what's going to happen during construction phase. 18 to 24 months, where these, they are going to be displacing people. Some people will lose their spots during that time, and they've got to have a deal with the location of where they're going to park during this time. It's going to be inconvenienced, and they're going to look at who can handle that inconvenience, in terms of accessibility and mobility and so on. So this is going to be a big issue, and that stood out for me. Along with the pool not, being, they're going to take the pool out, the pool got put back in, the fencing with the residents behind them, where it was, the fence was going to be way too close to their property. So they did do a reorientation to greater separation. So the things that I remembered highlighting, I felt they were answered. Now, I'm still a little concerned about the displacement of parking. They did say they had some deals in progress. And one of the comments I made at the end of the meeting was, is there going to be sort of a hotline number for the residents to call when, they, don't have a place to park, or it's, it's too far for them or whatever. So that's still over here for me, but that's something I'm trusting this developer to make sure that the inconvenience caused is going to be as minimal as possible. And that they put in what they need to put in to provide whatever, any kind of transportation from where they're going to need to park and walk to their building. If it's a couple blocks away, I'm thinking a little shuttle bus. I don't know, but that was a big deal for me then. Maybe I'm blowing it out of proportion, but I remember many of the people coming forward really worried about the construction phase, the what they've already been through with the noise and the work that they're going to have to deal with, and they're going to have to deal with that again. Plus, some of them are going to lose parking. And I can't remember how many. I want to say 70, but that might be too many. So that's going to be a big deal. That I don't see here, but I know it was something we brought forward. The lack of parking at the end of the day, right? So that it does bother me. I won't deny that. Mitch came up with a good formula. Obviously, the developer needs to do what they're trying to do, and the residents trying to make sure that everyone's accommodated. But as long as the current residents in this location are not going to lose their parking spot, then, or two, or whatever they've got, then, as I've heard like Councillor Gilliland mention, she feels comfortable with that. So do I. So I just want assurances through Mr. Mayor, through to Mr. Waters. Are the residents that have existing parking, are they going to be out a parking spot at the end of the day with this new parking configuration that we're approving here? Just want to confirm it from your perspective that existing residents will not lose their parking privileges. Can you answer that through Mr. Mayor to Mr. Waters?
Mr. Waters?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, as I said before, my conversations with the developer have confirmed that those who have one or more parking spots will maintain those as long as they live on the property they rent a unit. Any new tenant coming into either the apartment or into the stacked townhouses will be told one spot only. That's what I've been told.
Okay. So, sorry, through Mr. Mayor, so people buying new or renting new, they'll know their restrictions and they'll be able to either move in or not. It's up to them. But as long as the existing residents don't get burdened or lost what they already have, that makes me feel better. And the only other concern I have is the visitors parking. You know, it looks like they're having a tough time with that one. I do see this being, you know, again, something that needs to work out with the property management there. Event. I mean, it sounds like they have problems now. It's not even to do with the development. So that's an issue that needs to be worked out with their property management, and they need to try to hopefully find a better solution. But I do see that as long as the existing residents don't get impacted, and our staff have reviewed the bona fide traffic study and survey, and they agree with it, then, you know, I guess I do support that. I do wish that the developer, if he's hearing, and I don't know if there's any way we can add, can we ask them to continue to work for more parking spots to get to that 1.5 if possible? I don't know if that's something that we can do here. And one last question, sorry, Mr. Mayor, through you to Mr. Waters. Is the parking detail something that can be done during site planning, or is that something we need to determine now with the zoning amendment?
Mr. Waters?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, excuse me, the zoning bylaw will specify the minimum amount of parking spaces required. That doesn't prevent the developer through the site plan process to increase the parking supply if possible. Those details will be definitely looked at as part of the site plan process, for sure.
Okay, no, I appreciate that. Thank you, Mr. Waters. That's I'm just thinking.
Councilor, you have 30 seconds left, just to let you know.
Okay, that's fine. That's okay. I'll come back if I need to. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Councilor Gardner, second time? Councilor Gardner?
Yeah, I'm here. Thank you. As you all know, I've been doing this job for a long time. I don't think anything has touched me more than this issue. We are talking about people who need affordable places to live. Please keep that in mind. To Mr. Waters. Mr. Waters, from the March 3rd meeting, this is the information I was given the delegate this was given from the delegate to council. Mr. Mayor, I would appreciate if you have a pen, if you could write this down, because these figures do not add up and I would like to know why. The delegate said there were 244 numbered spots on this property. They said 22 were not being used. We'll assume that they will never need to be used. So if you subtract 22 from the 247 spots that are there, I get 225. There were also 5 vacant apartments. We know they're all going to get 1 spot. That's 230 spots. And I believe, Mr. Waters, that 26 parking spots are going to be provided. And we're going to have 56 new townhomes. They all get a spot. Then there are 4 accessible spots. I hope everyone can check my math here. I come up with a requirement for 317 spots. Mr. Waters, could you tell me where I've gone wrong there if I have?
Mr. Waters?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I am trying to follow the logic. If I could have the counselor kind of run through the numbers again, I'm just trying to understand where I know she had 244 and then.
No, I didn't.
Counselor,
Sorry.
Counselor, if you can just run through it again, I won't take it off your time, just because, so Mr.
Thank
Waters
you.
can get it
And
down
Mr.
correct.
Mayor, could you help me figure this out as well? So,
I'm trying to follow as well, so.
okay, there are 247 numbered spots for parking for tenants. The developers delegates said that 22 of those were vacant at that time and therefore wouldn't be required for tenant parking. So that leaves 225 spots. But there are 5 vacant apartments, so we have to add a spot for each of those. So that gives us 230 spots for the apartment building in order to keep the residents whole. And the developer said they would do that. Then we're adding 56 townhomes. And as you said, they each get a spot. So that equals 286 tenant spots, just tenant spots to park. And that's simply an addition of what exists and what is going to be built. But we also need visitors parking. So we have to add 26 spots to that count. And then we have to add 4 accessible spots to that count. That gives us a requirement for 316 spots for the developer to provide on this site. Math is not my best subject, but I believe that I have added this correctly. So would you kindly confirm if I have, and if I haven't, where have I made my mistake?
Mr. Waters?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, thank you, Councillor. Yes, I followed the math and the 316 is correct from that perspective. But what I said before, and I'll say it again, the study that was done to support the application is based on parking demand during certain periods of time during the day and during the evening, and that's what they base their parking demand and supply numbers on.
And yet the developers delegate presented the figure of 22 vacant as March 3rd, what would be required? 267 minus 22. So I can't understand how this count comes up to 317 and the developer is providing 295, and on page 9 they said that only 275 are needed. These numbers do not add up. The second thing is snow. We never counted that in. The third thing is we've just recently done our zoning bylaw, and we have decided, all of us, that 1.5 was the correct standard to provide residents, let's say, a quality of living or what they needed. It went down to 1.3 because this developer added accessible units, subsidized rent units. They agreed to do it for 20 years, so they got the 1.3 standard. We've never reduced our parking standard below the 1.5. So I do not understand how it is possible that we will allow this developer to provide this decreased number of spaces. And on top of that, we have so few affordable units in Aurora. We only have 2 other apartment buildings. These affordable units, and Councillor Kim addressed this, these affordable units will not be affordable when the new tenants move in. So we will be losing, at the end of the day, 204 affordable units. And with respect to the board, here's what it says, what I have about the OMB. This is what the OMB was supposed to be doing. They're supposed to be deciding, and I'm assuming that the tribunal will, they have to decide on an appeal if the council has followed their own plan, if our decision has been consistent with our adopted planning policy. We have adopted a zoning policy that is so far from what this developer wants to do. We have every leg to stand on.
Okay, Councillor, you're at 5 minutes, and that's we chopped out that extra bit.
Mr. Mayor, you please allow me to say this. I have done some work on the suggested parking during construction. Councillor Humphreys, with all due respect, according to Google, according to Google and to my drive from the parking during construction to this development, it's a 9-minute walk. A 9-minute walk. To put that in perspective, if you walk from the front, if you walk from the front door.
Councillor, if I let you
Mr.
go
Mayor,
way beyond 5 minutes, I gotta let everyone go beyond 5 minutes. This is fair to every councillor. We have procedure. We always harp on the fact that we need to follow our process and our procedure. You're way past 5 minutes. I cut off Councillor Gallo at 5 minutes. I can't allow you to go way beyond. It sounds like you're going to keep going.
No, I
can't
have
you do
one,
that.
I have
Unfair to
a
your colleague.
promise, one sentence. From the front door of Longo's to the front door of the town hall is exactly the same walking distance as the proposed construction parking to this development. Really? Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Councillor Humphreys, second time.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I appreciate Councillor Gartner's passion and she's done a ton of work on here. And I know she's really done a lot of homework. Councillor Gartner, I completely agree with you. That's really a difficult situation. That's why I mentioned my concern during construction. That's what I heard loud and clear from the residents there, that would be really difficult on those who will have parking displaced. So in that case, I'm this developer, and I don't know if that comes with it. And maybe let's confirm this through you, Mr. Mayor, to Mr. Waters. When parking is displaced during construction phase, I don't believe we're doing that today, but with site plan, will you ensure that there is sufficient, whether it's shuttle buses or whatever, that the individuals that get displaced really are cared for? Like, that's a big concern. I heard that loud and clear at that meeting. So through Mr. Mayor to Mr. Waters, can we do that or consciously make sure that the existing residents are looked after during the construction phase?
Mr. Waters?
Certainly, absolutely, Mr. Mayor and Councillor. We will definitely have that at the top of our list regarding the site plan issues to be addressed. What was presented at the March meeting was one potential concept for reallocating parking spaces. I'm confident that between now and when we're going through site plan, and which will be presented to you for approval. We will have other scenarios available.
Okay. And thank you. And through Mr. Mayor, I know Councillor Gardner's more looking at this as an overall picture, and I believe she just, I don't want to put words in her mouth, but doesn't believe in this development due to the densification being done previously. So I understand her passion and her worry and her concern. Again, for me, that's the case. And secondly, from those numbers that Councillor Garner brought forward, it almost looks like that there's studies showing that maybe 5 visitors at any one time. So I don't know how this parking space thing is going to work. I really am hoping that our towns, you know, when the staff reviewed the survey, that they really looked at this closely, because you know, if we are 1.5 and we've gone down to 1.3, and I guess this was something that was done previously, are we willing to stand behind that? So through Mr. Mayor, just another question to Mr. Waters. Our parking standard is 1.5 per unit. We're going to 1.15, I think. Can you confirm what our standard is, and are we standing behind lowering our standard for this site?
Mr. Waters?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes, we support the consultant's work that shows that the parking demand at 271. The applicant is providing 295 spots. Those spots will be, those are basically minimums, they're required. Through the site plan process, he will identify where those spots are going to be, where the visitor spots are going to be. We will work with the applicant to try to increase the supply as much as we can from the 295.
Okay.
Councillor?
So just one last one, and I'll be done now, Mr. Mayor. So say this is perhaps not approved tonight. It goes forward. Maybe I'm not rewording that right. Just our 1.5 standard is not applicable here, and sorry, we're not approving the exception of that, is what I'm saying. We're just approving the information on the survey. So is, through you, Mr. Mayor, is our bylaw of 1.5 a standard, but then reconsidered during detailed review of the site of traffic survey? Is that how we work that? So 1.5
Mr.
standard.
Waters?
Sorry, I need to ask that.
Mr. Waters?
So do you understand the question, Mr.
I
Waters?
think I understand, through Mr. Mayor, yes, I think I understand the question. So the RA2 zone, the standard for parking is 1.5.
Right.
And that's in a site that's not in the promenade, okay? The
Okay.
promenade has a ratio of 1 because, you know, it's near the
Right,
GO station
steps,
and
yeah.
so on and so forth. So in this case, the existing 2 buildings don't satisfy the current parking requirement. And that's
As they stand today.
that's correct. Yes, there's a deficit based on the ratio of 1.5. I believe it's 1.3 or something of that nature. Through the parking study that was done to determine the actual demand during or usage, they're proposing 1.1 for the site, in addition to the 56 units to support the 204 units plus the new 56 units.
Okay,
Councillor?
thank you. That's good, thank you.
Council, is there any other comments or questions on this one?
So, Cal?
Councillor Gilliland, second time? Go ahead.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. And I just I want to just kind of confirm through you, Mr. Mayor, to Mr. Waters. I believe the formula that the consultant came up with was like 1.03 or 0.4, something or other, but yet they're providing 1.1. So based on the actual demand through these studies that were done, they're actually accommodating more of the demand that was found within the report. Is that correct?
Waters?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, that's correct. I think they're providing an additional 24 spots over and above what the demand had identified through the parking study.
Councillor?
Thank you.
Thank you. And Councillor, just to reply to your comment about LPAT, I think you're mixing up the changes that were to LPAT, because now that it's reversed back, yes, it's de novo hearings, and they will just give due regard to council's decision, and they are starting a whole new application process, and it's up to the adjudicator to decide on what's in the best interest on planning principles. This is what we fought for, to make changes. Is we fought for those changes, and what you read out were the changes that they implemented and that were reversed. Now it's back to a de novo hearing. So I would love nothing more than to see that LPAT be gone or to revert back to what we worked so hard to get changed, but that's not the fact right now. The fact is it's a de novo hearing. Is there any other comments or questions? Councillor Gallo, second time. There you go.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. To be honest, I'm a little shocked at what I'm hearing, because maybe you should all review the public planning meeting and all of your comments. Maybe I'll do a little excerpt and compare and contrast between what was said then and what's being said now. I will stand corrected that I said unanimous in terms of parking issues. Councillor Gilliland, I believe, did not voice that opinion, and she's consistent tonight. I guess our standards in many of your minds, from what I've heard, are trumped by a consultant that is paid for by a developer, and nobody seems to have a problem with that. Nobody seems to have a problem with the multitude of residents bringing forward concerns that report was not accurate. It wouldn't have taken much for our own staff to go there and verify themselves. I'm shocked to hear that at the public planning meeting, it was very clear to me that the construction management plan was something very different than the parking numbers. And we had a discussion, and did a good job in the next GC in doing kind of a very high level plan of what they were considering doing. They heard us loud and clear, and they supplied that to the best that they could without any approvals at that GC. What no one is bringing up, and I really don't know why, Mr. Mayor, you can review the video after this, and I'll be shocked if you support this, to be quite honest, because you were very adamant that if nothing changed from that public planning meeting, that you would not be in support of this. In fact, something did change. They added 3 more units, and I'm shocked that nobody is even mentioning that. From the public planning meeting, where we said there's parking issues, they added 3 more units and only added 1 more parking spot. I'm shocked that nobody is even mentioning that. It just boggles my mind. I really stress that you should all review your comments at the public planning meeting, and what you said. Councillor Thompson, similar comments that it's clear, I think he said it's clear that there are parking issues that need to be addressed. Councillor Gardner didn't even vote for it. So I'm baffled at how from that point to GC and the application got worse, everyone's in support of this. It just doesn't make sense to me. Much conversation was around the ratio, and I don't have much to add other than, if this development was to comply with our 1.5, we'd have 386 units. Clearly, when it was built in the 70s, they agreed to 1.3, and had they had come forward continuing in that light, I don't think anybody would have blinked an eye. My issue is that everyone is putting way too much weight on a consultant that is paid for by the developer. I just and having residents contradict what was said there. I just can't believe that. I will not be supporting that, and I would encourage all of you to, at a minimum, do what you did at the public planning meeting and send them back and say, please review this because it's not acceptable. That's what we said. They didn't do that. They came back with more units and only one more parking spot. How can we save face to those residents? At the public planning meeting, we told them that we're going to make sure the developer goes back and revisits this. We promised that. They've come back and added 3 units and only 1 parking spot. How can we tell those residents we're doing a good job? I just don't understand it. It's not too late to change your minds. If you're convinced of this, you're convinced of this. I hope you've listened to what I've said, and it may be too late to review what you said at the public planning meeting after this vote is done, because that's just simply too late. I hope you all recall what you said back then. And this is something that needs to be sent back. It's not right. And if we stand behind our official plans and our zoning bylaws, then this nowhere near complies. Nowhere near complies. And we're doing a disservice to those residents.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Kim, second time.
Thank you. Through you to Mr. Waters. Mr. Waters, I'm not sure if you were around at the time, but I believe there was 2 public planning meetings, correct, on this?
There was. You're correct, Councillor Kim.
Okay. Now, I don't recall off the top of my head the second public planning meeting, and I'm not refuting anything that Councillor Gallo is saying, but in the first public planning meeting, I believe that was in the prior term, they had, Starlight had a multitude of items that we were not happy with. Those were the number of parking units. There was the fencing in the existing townhouse to the south. There was the deletion or the removal of the swimming pool. There was also some issues with trees. And there was talk about whether we could, move some parking into the boulevard facing Wellington, but we didn't want to, the concern about, wildlife and not wanting to change the green space on that block. So there was a multitude of items, and I'm not sure which one that Councillor Gallo looked at, but I know that, many, if not all of us at the time, were disconcerted about the initial plan when it came to us in public planning. And so since then, I didn't anticipate that they would resolve every single item, but it was my hope that they would resolve many of them. And so based on the initial public planning meeting, I believe that they've made a concerted effort to make changes to most of those items, and indeed they have, other than parking. I'm not happy about the parking. It's always great to have more. I acknowledge that, but I also acknowledge that there's give and take, and there's also some developers that we dealt with in the past that have not been accommodative. They were, bullies, and they just gave us one option, and that was it. This developer was patient and worked with us for over 2 years on this. So I just want to clarify that there were a lot of issues at the beginning, and there were changes, and we were able to work with the developer to make these changes happen. And unfortunately, the parking isn't exactly the way we like it, and we can still, there's still time to work with it in site planning.
Thank you, Councillor Kim. Councillor Thompson, you're the only one that hasn't spoken for a second time. Are you good?
I'm good.
Thank you. I'm just going to add, you know what? I know exactly what I said. And I said that in its current configuration that I wouldn't support it if it came back. And as Councillor Kim stated, many changes have occurred. And I don't think not one of us believed that we would get everything that the town wants out of this. We know, we're realistic. That never happens in any application. But I think that by us denying this at this time and going to LPAT, where we know that they're going to approve it, and we're going to lose the concessions that have been given to this town, and we're going to spend money at a time when we really shouldn't be spending money, when we know that we're just going to throw it out. Might as well just write a check to LPAT right now and just give it to them. And we can do a lot more with that money in this time, in this difficult time, than to just give it away to LPAT. That's a disservice to the residents of this community, is giving away that money. When we know as counselors what's going to happen, because we do this day in and day out. We know exactly what's going to happen in LPAT. And anyone that tries to tell anyone otherwise that, no, we're going to win at LPAT, if you want to throw away $75,000 to $150,000 for a hearing, by all means, go ahead. But that's a disservice to the residents. We've had the pool kept in, which the residents really wanted. They configured it in a different way to allow for more green space. They've moved back the setbacks. They've done a lot. As Councillor Kim stated, I'm not happy about the parking, but we got to be realistic here. We either move forward with this and continue to work with them, or we deny them and let LPAT take over, make the decision on our behalf, which they're going to give to them. And the applicant is going to go back with their original proposal, which means that you lose the pool, the setbacks get moved back, you're going to lose additional parking on top of what we already have. So if you want a worse plan, that's a disservice to residents. And so I will be voting in favor, because we've worked to a solution that while it's not ideal, it's the best for this town at this time. And so I'll be voting in favor. Councillor Kim, you got your hand up. You already spoke twice. You just have it up? Okay. So Mr. Clerk, I'm going to call the vote.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Recorded vote has been called for R2 on tonight's agenda. Councillor Humphreys, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mayor Marakis?
Yes.
Councillor Gallo?
Absolutely not.
Councillor Gardner?
A very sad no.
Councillor Thompson?
No.
Councillor Kim?
Yes.
Councillor Gilliland?
No.
She frozen? Mr. Clerk, I think she disappeared.
Did Councillor Gilliland disappear?
It's a tie vote. It fails.
She was here for the vote. We do need to wait for her to come back in.
We need some Jeopardy theme music or something while we wait.
Can we redo that? Can you hear me?
No.
Yes.
I don't think can we start over? Is that allowed?
We didn't finish.
I don't think we've lost, I don't know what the digital, we want to start from the beginning? Is that possible?
Mr. Clerk, why don't you just repeat what the current status is on the votes for Councilor Humphreys?
Yeah.
The current status is
Councillor.
3-3.
Let's recess.
Yeah.
Can we recess for a couple minutes?
Mr. Clerk, can we recess for a couple of minutes while we wait for Councillor Gilliland to come back in?
Sure.
5 minutes.
5 minutes?
Yeah.
5 minutes.
Oh.
Okay, they recessed. They recessed for me.
Counselor?
Hello?
There.
Yeah,
Yeah, they
Sorry.
so they're gonna be coming back very soon. We said 5 minutes, so.
okay, perfect. Yeah, sorry, my
Now
Wi-Fi just,
we might still be live, and I know it might not be. I'm not 100% sure, but it still says recording. So just to let you know.
okay, perfect. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Can anyone hear me? You can, thank you.
We'll just wait for Councillor Gallo, Councillor Thompson, and we'll start.
Hmm.
Councillor Gardner, did you leave or are you still here?
Can you hear me, Tom?
Yes, everyone
Oh.
can hear you. We're back.
Oh, okay, good.
Can we please start this vote again? This is very unusual.
I'd
Mr. Clerk, I'll
appreciate it because
vote.
I,
There's nothing in our procedural bylaw about this, but this is strange.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'm just confirming I am going to restart the vote. Here, I agree with you, Councillor Gardner. There certainly isn't anything in the procedural bylaw. We're all trying to make things work with these electronic meetings. So if the mayor directs me to, then I'll restart the vote.
We'll restart the vote unless there's any objections on council. Seeing no objections, Mr. Clerk.
John?
Okay. One more time here. Recorded vote for item R2 on tonight's agenda. Mayor Maracus, how do you vote?
Was that me?
Yes.
Yes.
John,
Mayor Maracus votes yes. Councillor Kim?
I think he's muted.
Councillor Kim?
Yes.
Councillor Kim votes yes. Councillor Thompson?
No.
Councillor Thompson votes no. Councillor Gallo?
No.
Councillor Gallo votes no. Councillor Humphreys?
no,
Councillor Humphreys votes no. Councillor Gilliland?
Yes.
Councillor Gilliland votes yes. Councillor Gardner?
no,
Councillor Gardner votes no. The motion is defeated.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Do we need something on the floor, Mr. Clerk?
In these situations in the past, I've noted that council does not mean to not receive the report, so we include in the agenda, in the minutes, that the report has been received, but that will be the only thing.
But I would suggest normally in planning applications, when they come before us, if you're going to deny this application, you need to
Why?
put forward denial of the application and the reasoning why you are denying the application. So if someone would like to put something forward, Councillor Gardner?
I'd like to start it anyway. It doesn't conform to our zoning bylaw.
So you'd
It doesn't
like to
conform
deny-
to the R2A zoning bylaw, which is a 1.5 standard and one building on a property.
Mr. Waters, are you okay with that? From a planning perspective, is that?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I think you need a little bit more than that, especially if council is going to
Right.
defend their position at the board.
Like what? What would you suggest?
Well, Councillor, I would suggest you're the one that wants to deny it. You should know why you're denying it.
I know exactly why I'm denying it, but I mean, Mr. Waters has something in his mind. I'd like to know what he's thinking.
I have one if you
Through you,
want.
Mr. Mayor, I think you've got to be cognizant, or council's be cognizant of the fact that it doesn't meet the standard at the moment of 1.5. So
Okay,
it's, I think you've got to be very careful on how you position your refusal and what the reasons are.
okay. The site has already been intensified. And it is already following the housing directive to provide affordable housing.
Mr. Clerk, did you get that?
Yes, sir. It's going to take us a second to put it up on the screen, Council.
Someone like to second that? No seconder?
Let's see it on the screen first.
Okay.
I have another suggestion if that doesn't,
I'm welcome to it. Okay, where does it say? And I can make that more policy oriented.
Okay, Counselor, we'll wait till we get it on the screen and we'll go from there and see if someone wants to second that.
Thank you. All right, but I have an amendment to it.
You have an amendment to your own motion?
Correct.
Well, why not just state it as a full out motion?
No, I mean, that's what I would like to do, but I would like to add some wording to it.
So council denies the application for zoning bylaw amendment for 145 and 147 Wellington Street West as the site has already been intensified and not meeting affordable housing. Councilor, that's what you want?
No, that's not very well worded.
What would you like? We'll give you one more step.
Thank you so much. I would appreciate any help I can get. So the development does not meet our zoning requirements for the R2A zone. The development already meets the requirements for intensification under the York Region official plan. And it follows Aurora's official plan and strategic plan of providing a variety of housing that supports affordable housing.
Mr. Clerk, did you get that?
Thanks so much, Mr. Mayor. Just give us another second.
Okay. Does everyone want to see that before I ask for a seconder?
Yeah. Councillor Thompson, you're really good at motions.
All right, there we have. The council denies the application for zoning bylaw amendment for 145 and 147 Wellington Street West as the request does not meet zoning requirements for R2A zone. The development already meets intensification under York Region official plan. It already follows the town's official plan affordable housing.
No, the town's official plan and okay, the town's official plan, the town's planning policies to support affordable housing.
Town's planning policies.
The town and the region's planning policies to support affordable housing. Thank you.
Mr. Clerk, you get that last one?
Sir.
Would anyone like to second that?
Or change it, Sandra?
Well, my perspective, Wendy, although I know that you've got the history on this one and so on, but for me, it's more of, and I feel bad, but I think that the rest of oh, I'm sorry, through Mr. Mayor,
You can add to it.
appropriate for me to step in, I'm sorry.
I have a suggestion.
No one seconded. I'm waiting for something to get on the floor.
Yeah, no.
Councillor Thompson, you're seconding this?
Sure, we'll add to it as we go.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Thank you, Michael.
Any comments or questions? Councillor Gallo, I'll go to you first.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I won't be supporting this because my view is that I don't want to kill this application. I do actually want it to go forward, but I want it to.
Okay.
My view would be to refer back to staff and have them, like we did before,
Okay.
take the comments that were made at the public planning meeting of May 22nd, 2019, and
Council.
public
Okay.
planning meeting of May 22nd, 2019, and revise the application based on those comments. That's my view. I won't be supporting this. And I don't want to kill the application, and I want to give them a chance to fix this.
Thank you, Councillor. Unless the mover and the seconder agree to refer it, I'm gonna move along. Though to go to Councillor Thompson is next. Councillor Thompson.
Actually, I'm kind of surprised by those comments, given the fact that, great detail was given to previous public planning meetings that said if it wasn't revised, we would not accept it. And so it hasn't been revised. The concerns that are still there. And so council has an obligation to follow through on what they said before. And if you didn't support it before and you asked for those revisions and it didn't come, then take the vote. Turn this down. You can't keep asking them to go back and do it and avoid taking your stance. Either you accept it or you don't at this point. And if you don't, then stand up and be counted.
Councillor Thompson, any other comments or questions? Councillor Gardner, go ahead.
To Councillor Thompson, I actually think you're right. Do you have anything to add to this to make it stronger?
Councillor Thompson, one sec. Sorry, go ahead.
Certainly, I would like to add to it if I can, with regards to that the application doesn't maintain the current parking rate or address the concerns expressed by council.
Thank you.
So Councillor Thompson, can you read out the change that you'd like exactly so the clerk can get that, and I'll make that as an amendment, unless the mover would like to make that a friendly amendment.
Oh, it's a friendly amendment.
But let's hear it first so that the clerk can get it. Councillor Thompson.
That the application doesn't maintain the current parking rate standards that are in place today with the 1.3, nor does it address the concerns that continue to be raised by members of council.
Mr. Clerk, did you get that?
Yes, sir. We'll put it up as number 3 to the current motion on the floor.
Is that good for the mover and the seconder? Or am I making an amendment?
I'm fine with it. I'm the seconder.
Yeah, I know. So you're good. And Councillor Gardner, you're good as the mover?
I'm good.
I'll wait till it's on screen, and then if no one wants to speak for the first time, I'm going to go back to Councillor Gallo. Councillor Thompson, is that what you wanted? Just nod your head. You good? Councillor Gardner, just nod your head. Are you good?
I just need another. Could it say current parking standard in our zoning bylaw? No, that's okay. That's okay. Sorry.
You already have that zoning part in the,
Yeah,
in the first part.
yeah.
Okay. Thank you. I'm going to go to Councillor Gallo. Councillor Gallo. Oh, go ahead.
Thank you. It wasn't my issue is that, and I fully accepted responsibility that I missed the fact that they did not comply at the GC that came before us. I think I mentioned that more than once, and really that should have been the place where my concerns and others should have been raised and fixed. I didn't catch it, and that's why my recommendation is to give them an opportunity, to at least one more opportunity to fix that and take what was said at the public planning meeting and to try their best to comply. That's my view.
Thank you, Councillor. Does anyone else like to speak to this? All right. I'm going to call the vote. Oh, Councillor Kim at the last minute. You're like, all right.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So now that the initial recommendation from staff has failed, and should this motion fail, where does it lead us? Through you to Mr. Clerk.
Mr. Clerk, and Councillor, I'd probably say that if this fails, the last one failed, we would in essence just be receiving this. Mr. Clerk?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I agree with you on that one.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I will, if there's no other comments or questions, I'm going to call the vote. Mr. Clerk?
Court vote has been requested for the denial of item R2 on tonight's agenda. Councillor Thompson, how do you vote?
You're on mute, Councillor. Sorry. Oh, we both muted each. I muted you. Go ahead.
Yes.
Councillor Gilliland?
No.
Councillor Gartner?
Yes.
Councillor Kim?
No.
Councillor Gallo?
No.
Mayor Marakis?
No.
Councillor Humphreys?
Yes.
Motion is defeated.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Do we need a motion to just receive this?
I'd like to put a motion on the floor, Mr. Mayor.
Yes. Yes.
What's that, Councillor Gallo? Councillor Gardner, 1 sec. Councillor Gallo?
I'd like to put a motion on the floor.
You'd like to move what? Sorry, it chopped out on me. I apologize.
That we receive and refer back to staff, as I said before, refer back to staff, and the applicant comply with the comments that were made at the May 22nd, 2019 public planning meeting.
Okay.
And
Someone like to second that? Councillor Humphreys? Comments or questions? Point of order. Councillor Thompson.
Wait.
One sec. Go ahead. Sorry, you were muted. Go ahead.
That motion is contrary to the recorded vote motion that was taken, and so it would need a reconsideration. Council have already voted on this application. Council voted to deny it. What was turned down was the rationale to deny it. And so to do anything else with this would require a reconsideration. And council's well aware of that.
Reconsideration.
Can you weigh in this? I don't agree, but can you weigh in?
Mr. Clerk, I'm as the chair, I would have to agree, but I'll defer to the clerk. I would have to agree and say that we should be just receiving this at this point.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I believe Councillor Thompson raises a good point that the motion has been defeated. There is nothing to refer back to staff at this moment.
So I think, and Councillor Gallo, to be fair, I think that if just by receiving it, in essence, you're not approving it, you're not denying it. In essence, your comments have been heard, and I'm sure that in essence, it's almost a referral, but it's not really.
I will move for a reconsideration, Mr. Mayor. I think there's enough support to make this application continue and in the right path. So I'll move to reconsider that.
Councillor Thompson, the hands were up, slapping again. Is that another point of order?
No, if he's put forward a motion of reconsideration, that's fine.
Okay. Would someone like to second that? Councillor Humphreys, motion to reconsider. Call the vote. Mr. Clerk?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, technically, motion to reconsider wouldn't be in order right now, so it'll be a motion to
Yeah.
waive the procedure bylaw and a motion to reconsider, which will require 2/3. Reconsideration would have required 2/3 anyways. So just a procedural thing for everywhere for council. Okay, so the motion to reconsider item R2 on tonight's agenda. Councillor Gallo, how do you vote?
Yes.
Councillor Gilliland?
No.
Councillor Thompson?
No,
Councillor Humphreys?
Yes.
Councillor Kim?
No.
Mayor Maracus?
Yes.
Councillor Gartner?
Yes.
The motion is 4-3 in favor, but that doesn't meet the 2/3 requirement for reconsideration.
I'm sorry, Mr. Clerk, you chopped out again. Did you say it did meet it or it didn't meet it?
It does not. It's 4-3 was the vote, so that does not meet the threshold for reconsideration or to waive the procedure bylaw to allow the reconsideration.
Okay, thank you. Councillor, did you just want to put a motion to receive it? Or does anyone want to put a motion to receive so we can move along?
Yeah.
Councillor Gardner,
No, I have a question.
point of order, Councillor Thompson.
can the clerk,
Sorry,
can the clerk read back the motions that were included when council had the recorded vote? I believe it included a motion to receive the report as well as a motion to deny it. So let's be clear what we voted on earlier.
Okay, so
but Mr. Clerk, you can go ahead, but we voted twice now to receive it, Councillor, if that's the case. The first time was also to receive and we voted it down. And then the second time we had receive in there and we voted it down.
That's fine. I just want to be clear. So
Yeah.
if that's what we've done, that's fine.
That's what we've done. We've had receive in there twice and both times they've failed. And yet we put receive the second time, even though it failed.
Okay.
So I would stand as chair, I'm gonna make the call and say that I don't see how it's out of order for us to just receive this.
That's fine.
We have to take some kind of action. We can't just leave it in limbo.
That's fine.
It's only fair, yeah, you know.
Mr. Clerk, did you want to add to that?
no, sir.
Okay.
So I'm gonna ask for a motion to receive this. It's the only motion that will be accepted at this point. Councillor Gilliland, seconded by Councillor Humphreys. Is there any comments or questions? Councillor Humphreys.
Dear Mr. Mayor, I want to apologize because I think we made a mess of this because I did not want to deny the application. I did want to see it go through with consideration of parking. So to the developer, to staff, if you can regroup and it's acceptable, I would love this come back with the concerns heard. I believe that's something we can ask. Most staff has heard. Hopefully the developer has heard. My concern, the one and only, was the parking. The other areas were concerned. So I just wanted to apologize to staff and the developer because they've spent a lot of time on this. And I hope that they will reconsider working with us again on that last piece.
Okay,
Thanks.
thank you, Councillor. Councillor Gardner, do you have your hand up to speak to this, to receive? And I hope that we don't all go into basically
No,
into the whole item again.
Yeah.
Councillor Gardner, go ahead.
Question. There's no reason that this couldn't be reconsidered, any of it couldn't be reconsidered at another meeting. We're
It
just
could not,
receiving,
but I'll be honest with you, you'll be lucky if you see this at another meeting, because I got a feeling that they're gonna just appeal to the LPAT tomorrow. But we'll see.
okay. Okay, I'll second to receive. I
Okay,
think it's
thank
already
you.
done, actually.
Yes. Is there any other comments or questions? I'm just gonna say, you know what, I hope that they don't appeal. I hope that they're willing to continue to work. Councillor Gallo, I hope that they do take that and say, hey, listen, we want to continue to work. I don't think so. I think tomorrow they're gonna file for an appeal, and that appeal is gonna be based on no decision by this council. I hope not, but I think that's what's gonna happen, but we'll see. So I will call the vote to receive. Clerk?
Recorded vote has been requested to receive item R2 on tonight's agenda. Councillor Humphreys, how do you vote?
You're on mute, Sandra.
Gotcha off. Go ahead.
Yes, thanks. Sorry. Yes.
Councillor Gardner,
Yes,
Mayor Marakis,
Yes.
Councillor Gallo,
Yes.
Councillor Gilliland,
Yes.
Councillor Kim,
Yes.
Councillor Thompson.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. All right, council, we are going to move to S1R1.
Oh.
Councillor Gardner, you pulled
thank
this one?
you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Am I unmuted?
Yeah, you're unmuted. Would you like to move something?
Well, I would like to have a vote on this. I'd just like to speak to it.
But are you moving? Are you moving it?
No,
Would someone like to move the recommendation out of GC? Councillor Thompson, second. Councillor Kim. Councillor Gardner, floor is yours.
thank you. I would just like to ask council, in light of the financial report, item number 1, it's on our agenda tonight. I would like, if this vote fails on this, I would look to put forward a motion that says that the area is to be provided with a park that has a grassed area and an information center for the wildlife park and parking for the wildlife park. This area is served with a park that is within a 10-minute walk, and that is what our rec policy says. So we don't really need another park here. This is going to be an expensive park to build and to maintain. So in light of our current financial information, I would like just to have it grassed. We can do anything we want with it in the future, but it is an extra park that this area does not need. So if you vote against the motion that we have put forward at GC, I will put forward this other motion.
Thank you, Councillor. Is there any other comments or questions to that? I'll just add, Councillor, I find that as an interesting position, because when I look back at Mavernack Park, we were constantly told that there was a close enough park to that area, and yet we, yourself, myself, fought to get that park there. Even though there was another park within our plan said that park shouldn't be there. So I'm just curious to what your stance on why it's changed for this specific one.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The Mavernack was a different issue. It's that area was not serviced with enough parks. I believe Mr. Downey said at the GC meeting that this area does have another park that can be walked to within the appropriate time. So I think this park is mainly to provide parking for the wildlife park. And we can do that and put an information center here now. And, you know, if we have the money in the future, then we can upgrade the park. But I don't believe that we need it according to our planning policy. Is Mr. Downey around?
Mr. Downey?
Evening, Mr. Mayor.
Good evening.
So this park was part of the 2C planning or approved planning area. And
2C.
So it was identified as a park, which was contrary to Mavernack, which was not identified as a park. So we had never, during the planning phases, considered it as a Mavernack or Thomas Coates as a park. So that's the difference between the two. This was always designated and approved by council as a piece of parkland.
Thank you, Mr. Downey.
Follow up, Mr. Mayor.
So, sure.
We're talking, well,
I-
Mavernack is in the 2B area, and this is in the 2C area. So they're two different areas. Mr. Downey did not say whether there was a park for these residents within a 10-minute walking distance.
Okay.
Is
Is that a
he
question
there?
or a comment?
Well, no,
Oh, is that a
We can't-
question or a comment?
we can't take away a park from an area if they need it. But my understanding from our last meeting was that it was not needed because there was another park that was for these particular residents that they could walk to.
And Mr. Downey can correct me wrong. I don't know if he said that we don't need it. It was, as he mentioned, it was identified as a park within our plan, and that there is one within walking distance. But I'm not sure, Mr. Downey, did you ever say that we don't need this park?
You, Mr. Mayor, no, I never said I didn't need it. The question was there another park in the area? And I said, yes, there was.
Okay.
But this was a council-approved park, and we are developing it as such.
Thank you. So, Councillor, because I quickly
Okay,
asked a question.
thank you, Mr.
Can
Mayor.
you stop? Thank you. Councillor Gallo. There
Thank
you
you,
go.
Mr. Mayor. Just quickly, I don't have an issue with what we're doing following procedure, and it doesn't negate what Councillor Gardner is saying. Should this come back to us and we have some serious financial issues, we can always make that decision at a later date, but let's take this next step and include the residents in the design, so I'll be supporting this.
Councillor, I agree. Let's get the public's opinion on this and move forward. Is there any other comments or questions on this one? All right, I'll call the vote. Mr. Clerk?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Recorded vote for the item of the park on Hartwell Way. Councillor Gilliland, how do you vote?
Yes.
Councillor Kim?
Yes.
Councillor Gardner?
Yes.
Councillor Humphries?
Yes.
Councillor Gallo?
Yes.
Mayor Marakis?
Yes.
Councillor Thompson?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Council, we will move to item R1, the financial impact forecast. And we have a presentation by Ms. Wainwright Van Kessel. So Ms. Wainwright Van Kessel, we'll start with the presentation, then we'll go from there.
Okay, can you see my screen?
Yes.
Excellent. So good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of council. This presentation and the report this evening speak to the forecasted impact of COVID-19 and only COVID-19 on the town's operations. This will show a month by month impact and also showing what the current situation would look like should it run through the rest of the year. These assumptions will change as we progress through the year and the lockdown actions are lifted. COVID-19 will have a significant cost impact on the tax-funded operating budget. The two bottom lines show the cumulative impact by month, the impact by month and the cumulative impact. Now that we are near the end of April, we expect that the pandemic will have resulted in a loss of about $329,000. Should the situation continue to the end of the year, then this will increase to $2.1 million. As the situation with the pandemic response evolves, this forecast will need to be updated. For most part, under the lockdown, the loss in recreation revenues is offset through operational savings. This will change when we are able to begin restarting these programs. The two items I want to draw your attention to are circled in red. They are driving the greatest impact to the estimated deficit at this time, the first being development revenue. These revenues come from development applications ranging from a subdivision and site plans to committee of adjustment requests. Under the current provincial order, the developer can get to the point of executing the subdivision agreement but cannot pull the building permits. Planning and Development Services has set up a new process to be able to start receiving the development applications, and this started on April 20th, and we have started to see some of these applications come through. As the restrictions under the provincial order are lifted and the economy begins to reopen, the revenue for this item may start to rebound, but it may also take some time. Second item is the penalties on taxes. These reflect the fee that is charged on past due tax accounts. If this fee is waived until the end of the year, it will result in a loss of just over $1 million. To date, the penalties on taxes have been waived until June 30th. In May, a report will be brought forward to Council to consider the action to be taken for the rest of 2020. Once we get to the end of this year, should the town have an overall deficit relating to COVID-19 and combined with any potential savings we could have in other town operations, it would be funded through tax stabilization reserve. The reserve currently has roughly a $7 million balance. The 2020 budget included an increase to the water, wastewater, and stormwater rates. In response to the COVID-19 pandemic, York Region has waived the 9% increase that they were going to charge us for the purchase of water and wastewater. In addition to this, other municipalities are waiving their increases to residents this year. Should the town decide to forego the rate increase, this would result in an estimated net loss of $914,000. Since the rate-funded budget does not have a separate stabilization reserve, the deficit will result in lower contributions to asset management for these services. This evening's agenda includes a bylaw to increase the water, wastewater, and stormwater rates set out in the 2020 budget. Should Council choose to keep the rates at the 2019 level, then this bylaw could be defeated and the existing bylaw, which established last year's rates, would continue. This slide shows financial status relating to some of the financial measures that were put in place back on March 20th. As of last Friday, we could see in the top left that we received 77% of the tax installment that was due on April 21st, which provided some deferral options available to residents and businesses. We have also collected 79% of the water bill that was also due last week on Monday. We should note that 155 residential property owners on the pre-authorized monthly or pre-authorized installment payments took the option to defer their taxes. And in addition to this, 53 commercial property owners also opted for the tax deferral program by completing an application showing their commitment to pass along the deferral to their tenants. Staff are planning to report back to Council throughout the year on items related to the pandemic. Next month, a report will be brought forward, as mentioned earlier, to provide Council a recommendation for tax due dates and options for penalties on late payments. We'll also be updating Council through the interim forecast updates. These updates will include COVID-related variances, and in addition to the forecast, will also provide an update on regular operations. The 2021 and 2022 operating budget will also be impacted by COVID-19. The pandemic could have lingering impacts on how the town operates under this new environment. Thank you for listening, considering the report before you. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Wainwright Van Kessel. Council, I'm going to first ask for someone to move to receive for information. And if I can get someone to move that and second that, and then we'll ask questions about the report directly to Ms. Wainwright Van Kessel and about the presentation. So Councillor Humphreys, moved by, seconded by Councillor Gilliland. So comments or questions to the presentation or to the report? Councillor Gardner. Go ahead.
Thank you very much. It was an interesting report. So I know that it's crucial we keep our stormwater rates up because of we need to ensure our underground infrastructure is ready to handle climate change issues. I think I see that is going to have the new rate.
Councillor, it's going to stay at the, and I'll answer this one, it's going to stay at the 2019 rate. The region did not make the 9% increase that they were planning on, and they've decided and moved at the regional council to keep the water rates at the 2019 rate. Ms. Wainwright Van Kessel, did you want to add anything to that?
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor. So the region has waived their 9% increase on water and wastewater rates. They do not provide us any services relating to stormwater. That is for our own infrastructure. And as Councillor Gartner spoke to, it does include a contribution, increasing contributions to asset management to help pay for the plan that was presented by Ms. Mahale a couple of months ago.
Thank you.
Councillor?
Thank you. The other thing that I thought, there's a good comment at the bottom of page 5, maybe when the report comes back, that waiving of tax and water interest payments discourages those who can pay for them and impacts the town's available cash flows, both on lost interest and the funds deferred, the further deferral of its planned cash flows, and of course the reserve funds. So I think that's something that council needs to keep in mind. Hopefully there are still people out there that can afford the rates, and they will be able to keep the town in a better, healthier financial economic position.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Gardner. Councillor Gilliland, and then I have Councillor Gallo. Did you want to? Yes, thank you, Councillor Gilliland. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm not so sure if this was answered or not because I was busy trying to read my notes of the questions I had. There was a point that was highlighted in the report about whether or not the region would waive the interest for 90 days in relation to all the monies from the school boards and having being able to afford that. And has there been any change in what the region will be waiving for the interest fees if we have to dip into reserves at the 1.25 per month?
Ms. Wainwright Van Kessel.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So the region is meeting on Thursday at their council to discuss options for deferral of either waiving the penalties on the repayment, our remittance of taxes to them, or potentially defer their payments. So that is partly why the report will be coming forward next month, which will speak more to the actual cash flow and mitigating the risk to make sure that we have the money in the bank to be able to pay for the school board payments and the region payments on time. So we're waiting to hear what happens on Thursday at Regional Council before making decisions on what our recommendations will be for that.
Councillor?
Thank you. And with this upcoming report, depending on the situation, will it include the operational saving costs that where we need to look to find those savings. Will we have that in the next report?
Ms. Wainwright Van Kessel.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, that'll come through in our interim forecast report. The report we're planning for next month is actually a cash flow report. So this speaks to the timing of receiving payments for billing and when we have to remit those larger payments out. So it does consider the forecast that we've got here, but then it also considers the timing of when we need to pay the region and the school boards for those larger payments too. We're looking forward to bringing the interim forecast report rather than an April 30th report as a end of May. So that gives us a little bit more information as to how this pandemic is going to progress. So I'm expecting that the report will likely come forward the first week of June to GC, or sorry, first week of July to GC, so that we have the time to gather the information and make a more substantive recommendation.
Councillor.
I may have one more question. Thank you. Come back to me. Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Gallo.
Thank you. Just a few questions on page 3 of 10. There's the chart there, estimated COVID-19 tax levy, operating deficit. Just a quick explanation, if you could, on near the bottom, third from the bottom, loss investment income. Between June and December, there's about 170,000. Could you just touch on that?
Ms. Wainwright Van Kessel.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So as we're progressing through this pandemic, we are less likely to invest our money in longer terms, which produces higher yields. So what we're looking at doing is keeping our cash fairly liquid to ensure that we have the cash to fund the operations as we move along. Also, with the timing of when we receive payments for our tax installments to when we pay the region and the school boards, we normally put that in short-term investments, which earn money for the town of Aurora. Since we can't guarantee that we'll have that timing, we have estimated some lower revenue on investments. Also, with the current financial markets that we have right now, the markets just aren't there for earning higher levels of interest at this point.
Councillor.
For you, Mr. Mayor, what percentage of our portfolio is invested in I don't want to say volatile, but non-specific returns?
Ms. Wainwright Van Kessel.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So in our investments, we have to follow what is provided under the legal list. We have, based on our investment strategy, about roughly 5%, which would be invested in equity through the one fund, which should probably be the riskiest returns. But what we have is we have a number of investments that are longer term that will come due over a longer period of time. So we won't recognize those interest revenues until they come through. But it's our shorter term income shorter term cash that we have right now, where we would normally turn around and go and invest that for 3 months, 6 months as we go. Right now, we're trying to keep it much more liquid so that we know we have the cash available should things get worse.
Councillor.
So through you, the one investment, is that the only one that doesn't have a fixed rate? And it's about $1 million, is that right?
Ms. Wainwright Van Kessel.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, it's roughly about 5% at max of our total investments that we have with the one investment equity fund.
Councillor.
And those the operating deficit, are those mainly in that fund or others?
Ms. Wainwright Van Kessel.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, it reflects more of keeping money in a high interest savings account rather than investing it in like a GIC for 90 days or 60 days. So we don't get quite the same level of returns on our funds. And also, rather than turning around and reinvesting some of our cash that normally we put in place for another year, we're still keeping it more liquid because we just want to make sure that we mitigate any risk of not having the funds available to pay our remittances to the region and to the school board, as they are two of our largest payments that we make.
Okay.
Councillor.
Thank you. And on page 4 of 10, the table there, Just so I'm clear, we're not adjusting the stormwater rate for non-residential. We're, as it stands, we're keeping it the same.
Ms. Wainwright Van Kessel.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So the bylaw that's currently in effect that was put into place last year reflects the first set of numbers, those 2019 rates on table 2. So the bylaw that's before council this evening reflects what would be in the next column to the right, which is the 2020 budget rates. So those rates would increase if the bylaw is approved this evening. But if council chooses to keep rates at the same level that they are at now, then that bylaw could be defeated.
And is there?
Councilor, go ahead.
Fine. I thought it was just the non-residential rate that we were keeping the same. The other was we were going to. I may be wrong. But is there a financial model if we were to keep the 2019 rates?
Ms. Wainwright Van Kessel.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So if we were to keep the 2019 rates, that's what was shown on slide number 4, or sorry, slide number 3.
Including non-residential?
Yes, that's all residential and non-residential. So that would be for stormwater. If the rates do not increase, that's $492,000 less that will be contributed to the reserve. And we also need to remember, like with stormwater, it's usually a fixed charge, but the water and wastewater rates are also dependent on volumes as well.
So if I'm reading that chart correctly, if we were to maintain the 2019 rates, we would have, I guess, a 914,000 change in revenue. Let's call it that.
Yes, based on the price of what we're charging, but then water and wastewater could also be impacted by the volume of water that's being used. And it's still a little early to see what that volume is going to look like. But from the discussion I was having with the region last week, they said overall, in a regional perspective, they haven't seen too much change in the actual water usage overall. It's been minor. However, I don't know how that impacts Aurora.
So I honestly wish I had a little more time on this to understand it better. It's come straight to council. It's pretty big decisions in terms of the impact or the potential impact, the help, not only to the residents but also to the businesses. So I mean, I'd like to hear other councillors and their view, but I really don't have enough information to make a decision whether I would want to move to remain at the 2019 rates and have a further discussion to figure out how to mitigate that, because this is going to be a multi-pronged, effort in terms of figuring out our finances, not only figuring out where our losses are going to be, how we can help the residents in various areas, but also looking internally and figuring out how or what are we going to do in order to mitigate all of these factors. And as I think Councillor Gilliland asked that question, it doesn't look like, in terms of looking internally and figuring out how to mitigate those factors, I don't think that's going to be part of the May report, but we need to have a serious discussion on what we're doing as a town to mitigate all these aspects, both from what we're implementing to help the residents out, what we're implementing to help the businesses out, and how internally we review our finances and how we can mitigate those. Is that something that staff is looking at? Through you to Ms. Van Kessel.
Ms. Wainwright Van Kessel.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, that is something we are actively looking at. We are taking a look at a number of areas on our current operations, and we are also taking a look at a number of assumptions that we had in the budget from last year to determine if there is some flexibility. As you know, in a normal year, The town generally runs a surplus of roughly about 2%, which is about $1 million. So a surplus like that, probably not, or like for general operations, probably not attainable, but there probably is some room within the budget. I know there's a couple of areas that I'm looking at specifically that could possibly provide some offsets, not to the tune of about $2 million. I'm thinking more in a neighborhood of a few $100,000.
And when, through you, Mr. Mayor, when would we expect that? And in that report, are we taking into account everything that we're doing?
Mr. Wainwright Van Kessel?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So we are looking forward to doing a report, which would be an interim forecast to the end of May. So that would give us actuals up to the end of May and would give us a bit more information for being able to make a good estimate on what things will look like going forward. We are also undertaking some other analysis and doing some deep dives into some of the information that we have in our financial budget compared to what we're expecting things to come through. But the report with actuals to the end of May would be developed through June and likely come to the first GC in July.
Councillor?
I'm happy we're thinking about I guess the analysis and the impact and all of that, but I'm really interested in knowing how much effort we're putting into mitigating everything that's happening. And I'm looking forward to seeing a report that describes that. And I would have liked to have seen something like that in order to help me make the decision whether or not to pass along to the town residents and businesses to maintain the 2019 rates. Unfortunately, I don't know if that's a good decision because I don't know if there's anything we can do to mitigate that.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor, and you're right on time.
Perfect.
Thank you. Councillor Thompson.
Thank you. And, absolutely, I appreciate all the work that staff put into the report so far. I mean, it is, it is tough seeing the numbers, and I think we're all concerned with trying to figure out ways to develop some sort of mitigation strategy or blunt the impact. I know that on page 5 of the report, it says that the only way the town can balance an operating budget deficit is through the reduction of costs, the lower contributions to reserves, and from our stabilization reserve fund as well. But I think it goes beyond that. And if you allow me, I'd like to put an amendment on the table.
You're free to put an amendment, Councillor.
I did pass it along to staff earlier, so if they could put it up.
Mr. Clerk, do you have this?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, we do. Just be a second. Here it is.
So the amendment is that a copy of report FIN 20-011 be sent to the Aurora Public Library, Aurora Historical Society, Aurora Cultural Center, Aurora Sports Hall of Fame, the Joint Council Committee for Central York Fire, and that a request be made to these organizations to do what they can to reduce expenditures and engage in discussions with the town on how they may be able to assist in balancing the town's potential operating budget deficit. And if someone will second it, I'll be happy to speak to it.
Do I have a seconder? Councillor Kim? Councillor Thompson, floor is yours.
Thank you. We often hear the phrase, we're all in it together, and this is certainly the case. These are all organizations that we provide for operating grants to assist them to be able to deliver their services. I think that, it's imperative we all work together. As we've already seen, the Aurora Public Library has already taken that initiative. Their board recently passed a motion to return any surplus to the town. I certainly think that's a wonderful, great step. But, there may be organizations that aren't going to have a surplus, or certainly not a significant one. I still think it's important that we work with them, to encourage them to pursue all avenues of grants or any relief measures that's available, because they may have shortfalls too. And I certainly would want to get to a position down the road where all of these organizations, or some of these organizations, approach the town to make them whole when we're already struggling for ourselves. And so I think it's important to ensure everybody is working together to try and mitigate the impact of COVID-19, not just on the town, but on their organizations as well. And so, you know, there may be other ideas that staff and of these organizations or our own have, but I think that it's a simple request to get them to look at their own budget lines as well as to work with the town going forward.
Thank you, Councillor Thompson. Councillor Humphries, you want to speak to the amendment? Yeah. Councillor Kim, did you want to speak to the amendment because your hand's still up, or are you just for the original motion?
But I'll speak to the
Amendment?
amendment as well later.
Okay, I'll get you after Councillor Humphries. Councillor Humphries?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Thompson, I really appreciate this motion being brought forward. I think it's absolutely the right thing to do during these times, and I'm looking forward to hearing what our partners will be looking into and coming back to us with. I think this is a really, it is the right step. We had a meeting with the public library, and this was on the agenda and unanimously passed to return any reserves back to the town that will not be, you know, used or necessary. And staff will continue to do that and come up with a better idea of what that will look like at our next meeting. So I think this is truly the right step for sure. And perhaps we can add here that maybe there's a periodic update on status of once there's if our partners agree to this, there's a status of when we can know how things are looking moving forward in terms of what we can anticipate to be put into our reserves to help the town out overall. But thanks, Councillor Thompson, for bringing that forward. It's the right thing to do.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Kim?
It's a timely amendment. I mean, given the library board confirmed that they're willing to give back a piece of their budget, that given the surplus that they're going to have, given their situation, and you know, it's great that the library is contributing, and you know, we're all in this together, as they say, and it only makes sense that the other organizations are thinking in the same way. Because the last thing we want is at the end of the fiscal year, you know, some organizations may think that the town can bail them out, but we need to take care of ourselves as well. And so you know, it's about managing expectations. And if they know up front that they need to manage their expectations, then it would make the midterm view a nicer story. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kim. And speaking to the amendment, yeah, thank you, Councillor Thompson, for putting this forward. I think it's a great amendment. I was actually at that library board meeting as well, and I sat in and listened to the conversation. I thought it was great to hear the conversation that we're all in this together from their point of view as well. You know, at the end of the day, that money is coming from the town, from the taxpayers going to the library. And they see the need to that if, you know, due to the fact that they will not, they don't have necessarily the cost expenditures that we do. So they'll actually have a surplus depending on how long this lasts. They see the need to return those funds back to where they originally came from. So I mean, it was great. It was a great conversation. It was unanimously supported. And you know, and thank you, Councillor Thompson, for bringing this forward and having the request to ask the other organizations that we provide funding to go through their books and their financials and see what they can do, because you're right, we're all in this together. So thank you very much for that. Is there any other comments to the amendment before I call the vote? Oh, sorry, Councillor Gallo. Sorry, I didn't see it. For some reason, the videos keep shifting around on me. You're now you're down at, well, actually, no, sorry, you're down at this corner now. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I just want to, I want to thank Councillor Thompson for this, and I completely agree. And just sitting on the Cultural Center board, I can, and I'm on their finance committee, I can say that they've been looking at the finances in great depth. It's a totally moving target. They're very different than the library. There are wage subsidies that they've qualified for. So it's the intent of the Cultural Center to communicate to the town on the financial status as best they can.
Thank you, Councillor Allen. That's great to hear. And I think that everyone, like you said, I think everyone's going to step up to the plate, and because they know that we're all in this together. So thanks for that update on the cultural center aspect of it. Any other comments or questions to the amendment? Look around, seeing none. So I will call the vote on the amendment. Mr. Clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Record a vote for Councillor Thompson's amendment to R1 on tonight's agenda. Councillor Kim, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mayor Maracus?
Yes.
Councillor Gilliland?
Yes.
Councillor Gallo?
Yes.
Councillor Gardner?
One sec, Councillor Gardner, did you want to say that again, please?
That was an enthusiastic yes.
Thank you.
Councillor Thompson?
Yes.
Councillor Humphreys?
Yes.
Thank you. The amendment carries.
Thank you. Back to the main motion as amended. Councillor Kim, you are next. Unless Councillor Thompson, did you want to finish up? You have the floor still?
No, I'm okay.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Kim.
Thank you. And, thank you, Madam Treasurer, for the great report. And, the report's for receipt, and I think there's going to be more clarity after the region's meeting and the report that's going to come to us next month. I think that's going to be more clear. But I think just as a comment, the water and wastewater, holding the rates as is for the whole year. I know that hasn't been decided, but just to put my view on it is that, I don't think this is going to be necessarily a V-shaped recovery, and not all the jobs are going to be coming back, and there's going to be a new normal. And so there's going to be a challenge, not just for 2020, but challenges in 2021. So anything that we do hold back on with regards to water, wastewater, and late penalties, it's going to be exacerbated in 2021. So I wouldn't want to make a decision at this point to waive or to maintain the 2019 fees for all of 2020. But let's play it incrementally and see where the next piece of information goes. Because in the end, we don't have the deep pockets that the other levels of government have, and we're no different from a smart center or any other landlord, because we only have one source of revenue. So if you hold off this year and then you got the anticipated increase in 2021, it's going to be a huge increase in 2021 that people are still going to have to live with, and we can't keep deferring. So that's just a comment, and that we're going to all have to gradually adjust to a new norm financially, fiscally, and otherwise. And so anticipate what the next report's going to look like, because that's going to provide us some more clarity. And but my view is let's make these decisions incrementally on a quarter by quarter basis, and go from there.
Ms. Wainwright Van Kessel, did you have your hand up?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, if I could respond.
Sure. Yes, please.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So at this point in time, we do have the bylaw before us, which has recommendations in there based on the 2020 budget. That 2020 budget did include the 9% increase for water and wastewater relating to what the region would pass on to us. They have deferred that increase. We do not know what it's going to look like yet next year. The table 2 in the report on page 4 also does provide what our break-even rates could be. So this is an alternative option where we could set the rates at those break-even rates, and then that would mean we'd be passing along the savings we would receive from the region, but then still covering our costs for water, wastewater, and stormwater that were originally included in the budget. Alternatively, if we did not want to increase the rates at this time, it's something that if council chooses, we could look at increasing later in the year.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Kim, did you want to add anything, or is that it?
No, that's good. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Gardner, I have you for a second time. Go ahead.
I'd just like to thank Ms. Wainwright Van Kessel and also to Jason, who's the author of this report. And I think that there's cautions in this report that we certainly need to listen to. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Is there any other comments or questions? Councillor Gallo, second time. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to be clear on what we're voting on. Is the, in terms of the rates, are we voting on the 2020 budget rates?
My understanding is we're just voting to receive this, other than the amendment that was made. Ms. Wainwright Van Kessel?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So this report we're voting to receive plus the amendment. The bylaw that's included on tonight's agenda includes the 2020 budget rates.
Yes, that's what I thought. So
Yes.
While we're receiving this report, we're increasing the rates to the 2020 budget. So we are making that decision tonight to increase the rates to the 2020 budget. Is that accurate?
Ms. Wainwright Van Kessel?
The bylaw will be approved.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, that is what's shown on the bylaw. It had come to the previous council meeting, but council decided to defer it to this meeting. So we had a chance to bring forward this forecast report so that council would have a better understanding of what the impact of not changing those rates would be.
Councillor?
I don't know whether there's an appetite on council to follow the revised break-even model, and I agree with Councillor Kim that I'm not for doing that for the entire year, perhaps on a 3-month basis, and then reassess. But I'd like to put that motion forward and see if there's any support.
Councillor, what's the motion?
To use the revised break-even rates for retail water, retail wastewater, storm water, storm flat rate residential, and storm flat rate non-residential.
Till when?
In table 2. I'm happy to say 3 months.
Can I make a suggestion?
Sure.
I believe and Ms. Wainwright Van Kessel, can you help me out here? I think our deferral on property tax is till June 23rd. Is that correct?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes, the deferral is to June 23rd, and penalties on taxes have been waived until the end of June.
Yeah. So, Councillor, how about we just extend it to that point, because we're going to have to make a decision on that as well. What if we just went to that point and then we can make a decision on everything come the end of June?
I'm fine with that.
Does that make sense? Okay. Sure. Ms. Wainwright Van Kessel, is that fine?
To you, Mr. Mayor. So the report that we're planning on bringing forward will provide recommended installment dates, but also provide some recommendations on where we will go with penalties on taxes for the remainder of the year. But the bylaw associated with the final tax information would not come to council until the end of June, to the council meeting in that month.
Okay. So we're good. Councillor Gallo, is that you're fine with that?
Yeah.
Okay. Someone want to second that? Councillor Gilliland? Comments or questions to that amendment? Mr. Clerk, do you have that amendment?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I just want to make sure I'm correct. If we just put up on the screen that I know Councillor Gallo listed 5 or 6 water rates. If we just put all water rates are reverted to the break-even rate, would that does that do the trick for the amendment?
Councillor Gallo? One sec, sorry, Councillor Gallo, you were still on. You were on mute again. There you go.
I'm basically going on the chart on table 2 and going down that list of those 4 items: retail water, retail wastewater, storm flat rate, non-residential, and the chart indicates what the rates are for the revised break-even amount.
So, and Mr. Clerk, your recommendation was?
It was just a speed thing to put all rates up, but we'll list them as they're provided.
If it's all whatever is easier, but as long as we capture all of those, yeah, it's fine.
Maybe what we can do now, if council's okay, is we'll put all rates from table 2 of the report, and then we'll, with the final in the minutes, it'll be the detailed rates
Is that good?
with the names of them.
Okay, is that good, Councilor Gallo?
Sure.
Okay. Councilor Thompson, to the amendment.
And it correctly, the amendment, if passed, will institute these break-even rates until June 23rd or the end of June, when a further report comes back and we make final decisions on a variety of topics. Is that correct?
Yes, and it would coincide with our property tax deferral and our penalties, removal of penalties and everything.
I appreciate that. What's not clear, and perhaps through you to Mrs. Wainwright Van Kessel, when would this change take effect? Would it take effect as of tomorrow, or is it backdated a bit? I'm just not clear when it takes effect.
Ms. Wainwright Van Kessel?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So this will take effect for the bills that we send out in May. So we've actually held off on running our billing to see what happens this evening. The other item I do want to caution is we do not have in this report listed the non-meter service rates. So we may want to increase them at the same proportion that the metered rates would increase. And then proportionately, we would be consistent if we stayed with the break-even rates.
Councillor?
Thank you. Just to clarify, you said it would be in effect for the bills that are going out from May. What period of time do those cover? Because I guess what I'm getting at is I just want to know whether this temporary measure is in effect really for 2 months from now until the end of June, or is it a longer period?
Ms. Wainwright Van Kessel?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So these bills would include the water meter readings that were recently done that get billed in May. I don't have the specific details as to if they're all the residential or commercial ones, but if you come back to me, my manager is actually listening to the call or to the YouTube, so she'll respond to me.
Yeah, I guess my only, I do like the idea of assessing the rates, but I just wonder if we're just changing the rates for 2 months, do we just leave the status quo and figure out everything in June? That was my only thought.
Okay. Any other comments to the amendment? Mr. Clerk?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Appreciate it. Just want to raise, right now we don't have the timetable on this, just to be clear, so that all the rates in table 2 of the report be reverted to the revised break-even rate until the end of June 2020. Would that be correct?
That would be correct. Correct, Councillor Gallo? Yes.
Okay, we will add that in. Thank you.
Is there any other comments or questions to the amendment? I am seeing none. I will call the vote. Mr. Clerk?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Recorded vote for the second amendment of R1 on tonight's agenda. Councillor Gallo, how do you vote?
Yes.
Councillor Gardner?
Yes.
Councillor Humphreys?
Yes.
Mayor Marakis?
Yes.
Councillor Gilliland?
Yes.
Councillor Thompson?
Yes.
Councillor Kim?
Sorry, Councillor Kim, you're on mute. One sec. Go ahead.
Okay. Yes.
Thank you.
Motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Back to the main motion as amended. And I believe, Councillor Gallo, you still have the floor if you want to finish up with anything, or? One sec, sir. There you go.
I did. I just wanted to, I wasn't clear on the response in terms of the report that's coming back. Will it look not unlike the motion to ask our partners to look at their finances? Are we looking internally, and will the May report reflect an analysis of where the town of Aurora can find savings internally.
Ms. Wainwright Van Kessel.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So the report that we have planned for May 19th is specifically relates to the cash flow and the tax dates and penalties. It's not speaking to the budgeted variances. It's the next report that we're doing on the forecast that will have that information. What we can do is possibly provide some information as we go along to see what we have found, but to provide an accurate forecast, we need to be able to gather that information from, I need to be able to gather that information from my colleagues, and we need to be able to set the appropriate assumptions. We could start working on it, but I'm not sure how quickly we can get that for you.
Okay, Councillor.
I'm not looking for it quickly. I'd like it accurate, so whatever time it takes. I was just curious to see whether that is in the works and if we're doing exactly what we're asking our cultural partners to do.
Ms. Wainwright Van Kessel.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So one of the items I'm looking at specifically that will probably provide some of the larger savings is going to take some analysis, and it's going to take some time to actually work through. So I want to make sure that we actually get an accurate number, and it does take some time to figure out what it's going to look like.
And I'm okay with that. I'm not looking for it to be rushed. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Anyone else to the main motion as amended? Seeing none, I will call the vote. Mr. Clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Record a vote for the main motion as amended for R1 on tonight's agenda. Councillor Thompson, how do you vote?
Yes.
Councillor Humphries?
Yes.
Councillor Kim?
Councillor Kim.
Yes.
Thank you.
Councillor Gilliland?
Yes.
Mayor Marakis?
Yes.
Councillor Gardner?
Councillor Gardner. You
Yes.
stay?
Yes.
Thank you.
And Councillor Gallo.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. All right, Council. We will move to motions. This is where it's going to get tricky. I'm going to pass the chair to our Deputy Mayor, Councillor Kim. You have the chair.
But he can't speak.
You have to unmute yourself. There you go. You're unmuted. Go ahead.
Would you like to put your motion on the floor, please?
I'll move my motion as is.
Okay. Seconder, please. Councillor Humphries. You have the floor, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's quite simple. You know, the the charity golf committee was created, as we all know, to receive the funds that come in from the Mayor's Golf Classic to help those in need in our community. The funds are there. The committee is not meeting due to the emergency orders, just like all of our committees are not meeting. And so therefore, as we struck the Community Cares Action Team to look at how we can help the most vulnerable in our community, our seniors, any potential homeless ones that are homeless right now, that we need to help as many people as possible through this difficult time. And as that team is in essence created mostly from the dedicated volunteers from the golf committee as well, the thought is that we would shift over $25,000 to be utilized through through some initiatives, whether it's providing food, whether it's looking at providing some of the thoughts are iPads. There's been lots of conversation through the committee looking at how we can help those that are most at risk and you know, basically being impacted really hard through this pandemic. And so there's $59,000 for anyone that wants to know as far as from the financials at the committee. So we're not looking to shift all the money over. It's $25,000 for now to be able to be utilized for what the purpose was for those funds to be utilized for, which is to help those most in need in our community. The framework is exactly the same as the golf committee in terms of reference. anything that comes in that we're looking at spending would eventually come back to council in a report for council to see the itemized list of how the money was spent. And I just remind everyone that these are not tax dollars. These are monies that were donated for the strict purpose of helping out those in need in our community. And that's why we're shifting this over. It's because we need to desperately help many people that are most vulnerable in our community. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Any questions or comments?
Just one quick.
It's good. Councillor Thompson has his hand up. Just I'll help you out a little bit, Councillor.
Okay, because I can't see anything.
All right.
Okay, Councillor Thompson.
Thank you. I certainly support the motion. I just had one quick question. With regards to the remaining funds in the Mayor's Charity Golf Classic, what is the intent to use them or the plan?
So thank you, Mr. Chair. So the remaining funds that are in there, the reason we haven't shifted over more is because there was just before this happened, there was 2 applications that were put forward that amounted to 10,000, and we just want to make sure that we don't take all that money out, and maybe those organizations are in desperate need of those monies as well. So we figured leave that there for now. Let's see how this plays out. If we need more or if something comes up, we can always work out and figure and come back to council and say that this is what's come up. We need to shift some more funds from the one committee to the other.
As a follow-up, so roughly there's 35,000 left in the Charity Golf Classic after the money gets transferred over. So typically from year to year, you sometimes roll that money over to the following year. You don't always use it up in a given year.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. That would be correct. There's funds that are left over to help run the next classic, so that way we could bring in more funds to help those in need.
Perfect, thank you.
Councillor Humphreys.
Thank you. Perfect. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just thank you, Mr. Mayor, for bringing this forward. It's just going to go a long way. We have a lot of areas of need within our town that I think most people will be very surprised and shocked that we have this this situation. Obviously, it's much worse with COVID-19, but and this is what we're doing it for. But I just want to thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, for allocating some of those golf charity funds, again, not tax-based, from the charity tournament. So it's truly gonna go to the great use. Thanks so much again.
Thank you, Councillor Humphreys. Mayor Marcus, who's next on the agenda there? Anyone raise their hands?
I don't see any other hands up.
Okay. So if there's no further questions, I'll call the vote. Mr. Clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Motion, record a vote for the motion on tonight's agenda from Mayor Maracus. Councillor Gilliland, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mayor Maracus.
Yes.
Councillor Gardner.
Councillor Gardner, can you say again, please?
Oh, wow. Yes.
Councillor Gallo.
Yes.
Councillor Thompson.
Yes.
Councillor Kim.
Yes.
And Councillor Humphreys.
Yes.
Motion carries.
So am I taking the chair back, Mr. Chair?
Yes, I'll give it back to you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. You did a wonderful job.
Good job.
So council, we will move to regional report. Would someone like to move to receive that for information? Councillor Humphrey, second. Councillor Kim, any comments or questions on that regional report? Seeing none, I'll call the vote. Mr. Clerk.
Recorded vote for the regional report on tonight's agenda. Councillor Humphreys, how do you vote?
Yes.
Councillor Kim.
Yes.
Mayor Maracus.
Yes.
Councillor Gilliland.
Yes.
Councillor Thompson.
Yes.
Councillor Gallo.
Yes.
And Councillor Gardner.
Councillor Gardner, sorry, one more time.
Yes.
Thank you.
Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Council, we have new business. And I will start with Councillor Gilliland. Do you have any new business? Go ahead.
A couple things.
Okay.
I have a few things, but before I get to this list, I just kind of wanted to ask through you to Mr. Clerk, the reconsideration that we had were asked to reconsider, was that reconsideration on the motion of staff recommendation that failed, or was it a reconsideration on the motion of why it failed?
Mr. Clerk?
Mr. Mayor, my understanding was that it was reconsideration of the staff recommendation, or the item itself, I guess. Not necessarily the staff recommendation, but that's what would have been put back on the floor should reconsideration have passed.
Okay, so from my understanding, it wasn't on the second thing that failed on what we're saying for council. So I guess where I'm going is it was miscommunication for me, misunderstanding for me. I thought we were reconsidering the language of what we had just failed in considering what the reasoning why council had decided not to go ahead with the original staff recommendation. So it was a little bit confusing. So I guess I was asking if we could waive procedural bylaw and redo that reconsideration vote based on the fact that it was misunderstanding to me and not clear that of what I was actually voting on. So I guess I'm asking for a reconsideration of the reconsideration.
So, Councillor, you're asking to put a reconsideration of item R2?
That's correct.
So, Mr. Clerk, once again, waive procedure.
We will certainly have to waive procedure by law to allow the motion for reconsideration. It's not immediately clear whether it's procedurally possible to reconsider.
A reconsideration? That's what I was thinking.
Yeah, you certainly can't, but I think it's they want to reconsider, if I'm right, Councillor Gilliland wants to reconsider the motion to deny and all the aspects of that being that didn't meet the R2A zoning and things like that. I suppose I can't think of anything why you wouldn't. So yes, we would need a motion to waive the procedure by law to allow the motion to reconsider the denial motion. It's not as clear as mud, but yes, that's the way I'd go with it.
So this time we are waiving procedure to reconsider the denial.
Just to allow the motion. We'll need two motions here.
Yes, but that's okay. So motion to waive procedure. Councillor Gilliland, would someone like to second that? Councillor Gallo. Councillor Humphreys, did you have a question?
I do. I just want to make sure through you, Mr. Mayor, that Councillor Gilliland knows what we're reconsidering. Because we actually.
Waiving procedure.
We're just waiving procedure right now.
Okay, sorry.
And Mr. Clerk, we need 2/3 on this as well, right?
That's correct.
Just so everyone's clear. All right. So I have a mover, I have a seconder. I am going to call a vote on waiving the procedure.
Okay, so the motion on the floor is to waive the procedure to allow a reconsideration vote to happen. Next, requires 2/3. Councillor Kim, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mayor Marakis?
Yes.
Councillor Humphreys?
Yes.
Councillor Thompson?
Yes.
Councillor Gilliland?
Yes.
Councillor Gardner?
Yes.
Councillor Gallo?
Yes.
The motion to waive the procedure by law passes.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Councillor Gilliland.
So I guess the whole point of this is that I wanted to make sure that when we were doing a vote about the reconsideration, it's on the actual staff original staff recommendation. And that is what I'm asking, is if we can do a reconsideration on the main motion,
So
the main staff recommendation.
to vote in favor,
No, she wants to put R2 back on the floor.
to put R2 back on the floor.
No.
You want a reconsideration to put R2 back on the floor,
Correct.
as was shown, Mr. Clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That reconsideration motion has already happened tonight, if I'm not mistaken. And procedure bylaw does talk about in the reconsideration section G, no motion to reconsider may itself be the subject of a motion to reconsider. So I think that's what we would have here.
Yeah.
And I agree, Mr. Clerk. Yeah. So, Councillor, we can reconsider. My understanding is we can reconsider the denial motion, but we can't reconsider at this point the approval of the application.
So what you're saying is that we can't reconsider the original staff recommendation and then add an amendment to it?
No, because that was the original reconsideration that failed. So we can't reconsider a reconsideration, as our Mr. Clerk just read out to us.
I hate to interrupt, but can my motion to refer back to staff, is that in order?
To reconsider that. Yeah.
No, because we would have to reconsider. Mr. Clerk, we're in procedural lingo right here. So
Yes, we're in quite the procedural problem here. Through you, Mr. Mayor, I don't think so, Councillor Gallo. I think the only thing that could be reconsidered at this point would be the denial motion. I don't think we'd get into a spot where it's back. If the denial motion is reconsidered and it's back on the floor, then a motion to refer back to staff would, I think, take precedent over that. So in the sense that it's possible that it could still get referred back to staff, but we need to reopen the motion, the denial motion first.
okay, Councillor Gilliland, I'll leave it in your hands. You can either put forward a reconsideration of that denial or not.
I guess my goal is to
Get it to staff.
well, yeah, I don't want to see the actual development not be approved and go through, because I agree with the actual development. I know some council members have issues with the actual parking, so I'm trying to figure out the best way to go about it without, to say that, because the reconsideration in my mind at the time was the reconsideration on the denial versus of the second part, not the first part. So I thought that I was able to kind of go back and reconsider the miscommunication and misunderstanding that I had. And I'm hearing from the clerk, I can't do that.
That's what the clerk is saying. I need something on the floor, otherwise we're going to move along.
Well,
Mr. Mayor, I'm happy to put a motion on the floor to.
Is there any
denial.
help I can have from the clerk in the sense of what I'm trying to achieve here, Mr. Clerk? I think you understand what I'm trying to achieve.
Mr. Clerk?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I think so. I don't think I could be of much help in this situation. I think, like I said, it's just the denial motion. It seems that the approval of the zoning bylaw amendment, is very unlikely at this point. I don't know how we would get back there.
No, we don't want to.
So I need Councillor, I need your mic on mute. Councillor, so we can either put a reconsideration for the denial, or we move along. And we've waived procedure at this point, so I'll entertain that motion if you'd like to put that on the floor. I understand what you're trying to do and but unfortunately, procedurally, this is the only thing available to us at this moment in time. And if you're not willing to, I believe Councillor Gallows wants to do that reconsideration.
Okay, I'll let Councillor Gallo do that then.
Okay, Councillor Gallo, did you want to do that?
I'm happy to reconsider the denial in an effort to refer the item back to staff, as I mentioned before, to review the planning meeting and work with the applicant to comply with the discussion that took place.
Okay, so we want a reconsideration of the denial. Would someone like to second that? I'm seeing no seconder.
And just kill it.
All right, we're moving along. Councillor Gilliland, you have more on new business?
I think Councillor Humphreys had tried to second that.
You did try to second that? Councillors, you need to be clear when you put up your hand because.
It's hard. Yeah, sorry. Yes, I did.
All right, I'll accept it because we're in a very situation here. I don't know how to get into it, but we're so Councillor Gallo, you've put forward a reconsideration of the denial on item R2. Councillor Humphreys, you're seconding that. I'm going to call a vote. Mr. Clerk, we need 2/3.
Yes, we do. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Record a vote for the reconsideration of the denial of the motion passed earlier this meeting. Councillor Gallo, how do you vote?
Yes.
Councillor Thompson?
No.
Councillor Gardner?
Yes.
Councillor Humphreys?
Yes.
Mayor Maracus?
No.
Councillor Kim?
No.
Councillor Gilliland?
No.
The motion fails.
Why do we waste our time?
Don't think. It's not going to do what I want.
Councillor Gallo, you belabored the point about the developer coming back.
Council, please, can we get through this evening? Thank you. I'm putting everyone on mute. Councillor Gilliland, except for you, you have new business.
Okay, so a few things. The first thing I just want to talk about was our Arts and Council working group. And just to kind of say that I know that we've been kind of working behind the scenes, and Mayor Maracus, I know you've also been involved, in Councillor Humphreys and Gallo. And I just wanted to kind of let everybody know that is something that's in motion, and hopefully we'll be having our first meeting soon. So I'm really excited that this is kind of up and running and helping support that sector. So I just wanted to point that out. The second thing was I was really proud of our staff working really hard to do a partnership with earthday.ca. I know it was something that was at the very last minute, and the town of Aurora had jumped on the opportunity to work in a partnership to help promote Earth Day and all the good things that go with it, and help educate and celebrate it with our residents and community. So I just want to give everybody a big shout out for that. I also wanted to address some of the litter that has been around town, and I had some requests from residents to, I guess, ask about the operations department and whether or not there was some sort of initiative to kind of coincide with the fact that we don't have our annual cleanup day. And I was wondering through you, Mr. Mayor, and Mr. Downey, if there was some sort of update you could give the residents based on this initiative, and if there's something that can be done above and beyond kind of maybe what we've been able to do within our capabilities.
So, Mr. Downey, I'll let you answer that, but for just quickly, I can answer. We've been also looking into the fact that and talking with the school boards to see if there is a way that we could utilize maybe some of the students that are just off right now, and maybe there's a way that we can get them out and they can collect hours and clean up around town, obviously being protected and maintaining that physical distancing. But we're looking into that. But Mr. Downey, did you want to expand upon that?
Certainly, we are looking at options to how we can address this. we had the high winds last Tuesday, which really hurt us because a lot of the recycling had blown throughout the town. So areas that we had already cleaned up were once again a mess. So we're looking at options of either deploying more staff or redeploying additional staff in order to address the issue. So I am working with the other department heads and the CAO and trying to address the issue.
Okay,
Councillor.
perfect. Okay, love it. I also want to just kind of just make a comment about the residents of the Chartwell in Aurora, and just sending my condolences to the residents that we've lost in Aurora. And I'm hoping that people will continue to support the PSW workers with, you know, the PPE. And I know some businesses in town have been donating food, which I think is fantastic. And if it's within your means as a resident or whatnot, and you have the opportunity to help, definitely these organizations are looking for donations to help them get through this. So I think that was the rest of my new business. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Gilliland. Councillor Gallo, you have new business?
I did. I just had a question. I think probably for Mr. Nadarozny, Georgina, or maybe you, Mr. Mayor, I'm not sure. Georgina came up with an emergency response benefit for their businesses. It's a non-repayable funding for local businesses of up to $7,500. The grants available range from $2,500 to $7,500, and there's a whole criteria. I'm just wondering whether put any thought towards, and I know, Mr. Mayor, through the chamber, perhaps there's something that's in the works, but they're doing it, and I don't know where they're getting their funding from, but it's a significant commitment to the businesses in that community, and I'm wondering if we've explored any options similar to that.
And I'll let Mr. Nadarozny explain a little bit, because it is a unique circumstance, but I can tell you that we are exploring all options available to us. I have been in contact with our MPs and MPPs because there's certain things that fall from a provincial legislation point of view. So, but I'll let Mr. Nadarozny expand upon that and how Georgina is able to do what they've put forward. Mr. CAO?
Yes, thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. The structure in Georgina is such that the council would give money to what is called a Community Futures Development Corporation. These are separate entities, legal entities that are set up small, like small lenders, basically, community-based lending. They were originally a creature of the federal government when the federal government wanted to give economic development funding to small and rural communities. And it allowed for these Community Futures Development Corporations to do microloans, fairly risky loans to entrepreneurs to help them get businesses started. And that's what CFDCs are created for. There is a CFDC that's called the South Lake, I believe, Community Futures Development Corporation that is operating in Georgina. When this first came out, there was a request made of that CFDC to whether they would be willing to expand their territory in order to provide the same services beyond their current borders. They declined that. I actually think, I haven't been able to talk to anybody, but I actually believe they're not allowed to. As I said, these are fairly formal organizations because they actually do lending. And I don't think they can just go expand their boundaries. It would conflict with their federal authority to loan these monies. So in essence, the Georgina would give the money to the CFDC, and CFDC would treat it like a grant that they can turn around and lend or do various things to. And in the case of Georgina, my understanding is they put certain conditions on how they wanted to see the money distributed within the community. And so that was a condition of the CFDC taking the money. In Aurora's situation, first of all, we do not have a CFDC. And secondly, any other mechanism that we have contemplated would run contrary to the Municipal Act, specifically the lack of ability for municipalities to do anything that's considered bonusing, which is to offer an incentive or other benefit to a private business. So when the mayor spoke of speaking to other ministries and ministers, there is some talk. I haven't seen anything concrete come out yet, but there is some talk. Other communities have asked the province to relax the bonusing provisions of the Municipal Act during this COVID crisis and allow for, at least for the opportunity for municipalities to play in this sort of domain and decide if they want to offer specific incentives to private business. But this time there's no mechanism for this council to do so legally, and there's no way that we can get a CFTC up and running in the time period that would be required.
And Councillor, I'm just to add on to that, I'm just to let everyone know I'm in the process of getting a meeting with the Minister of Municipal Affairs to discuss this specific issue as well. So hopefully I have more information as the weeks go on, and maybe we can do something at that point.
Thank you, and I appreciate that, and it's very thorough and detailed. That's great. And just to follow on Councillor Gilliland in terms of, I know we don't always mention people that have passed away, but a particular person that was significant in the community has passed away and will be dearly missed. Our Jan lady, Jan Friedman, has passed away, and our condolences to her family, and the entire community has lost a great person.
Thank you, Councillor Gallo. 100%. I think everyone around this table agrees. Is that everything, Councillor Gallo? Thank you. Councillor Gardner, do you have any business?
There, actually, I neglected to ask that my motion on closing a lane be added to the agenda. Is it possible to do that now? Interesting evening.
You're making this very interesting for me tonight, Mr. Clerk. And Councillor, just off the top of my head, I would say that it's a substantive motion that it's unfortunate that it didn't get added on as procedurally it should have at the beginning. I think that if we agree to allow this, I would have objections up and down the screen from a couple of councillors. We can try to play that out and see how it goes. But I would suggest as the chair that it might not be in order, but I'll allow our clerk to respond.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I tend to agree with that new business motions aren't generally substantive. And like you said, this one is a bit more, requires probably a bit more thought from council in terms of whether they'd like to vote for it or not. So I would agree with you, but if you do end up allowing it, it would be a motion to waive the procedural bylaw first, to allow the motion to be added to, I guess, the new business section.
Councillor, at this point, I would recommend that put it forward. The staff already have it, and it'll follow the process. It'll be on the next agenda.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I do not want to waive the procedural bylaw again, but I do want to ask you. Toronto, I think, has opened up 50. Do you really think that they've passed this through council? Has this been a council decision, or has this been an administrative decision?
For which, sorry, I apologize.
For opening up a lane. Does this need to be a council decision?
Well, wouldn't you like it to be a council decision? You want me to make that? You want me to make that decision without any council approval? Is that what you're asking?
Okay, I take it back. But I mean, it just, other places just seem to have done it. I don't know if it's gone through their councils. Okay, so we'll leave that for now. But I do want to say that it is today the National Day of Mourning for workers killed in the workplace. And I would think that some of these workers who were killed in the workplace would be students who are doing jobs that aren't safe and they don't realize it. There is a very special mural at York Mills and Yonge in the subway. And it really brings this tragedy into perspective. So if any of you are in that area, please have a look at it.
Thank you, Councillor Garner, for bringing that up. And we did have a moment of silence at the beginning in
Yes.
regards to National Day of Mourning. But thank you for pointing out that mural to every council member and to the public. That way, maybe they want to go and take a look. I think it would be great for them to take a look and see it.
Thank you. Was that a National Day of Mourning for people killed in the workplace?
Yes.
Thank you. I thought we were paying tribute to what happened out east.
Well, we can do that too if you'd like right now.
I think we should have done it all together. It's getting late, Mr. Mayor.
Well, I think nationally, everyone had it was Wear Red Friday, and it was a national day of mourning. So I think everyone paid their respects, as I know I did, and I think we all did as a
Yes.
country.
Yes, of course.
Definitely.
Thank you.
Is that all?
That's it.
Thank you. Councillor Gallo, did you have something did you want to speak to something that Councillor Gardner said? No, you wanted to, so do you want me to come back to you then? Let me keep going. Okay. Councillor Humphreys, do you have new business? Go ahead.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a couple of things. And one of them is recently, I don't know if the public is getting a little frustrated. The weather's getting better and people are wondering why they can't go to the parks and all these things. But, we have to try to remind our residents that it's for their safety and protection, that the government has issued a shutdown of parks, playgrounds. And the reason for that is the social distancing is what's protecting them, protecting all of us. And I know sometimes, it's been 6 weeks. It seems like forever. We still haven't got to where we need to go to start to slowly change that. Our health officials and our government officials that are helping us with those decisions have not changed their perspectives. And lives matter. Every single life matters. People who have existing illnesses that could be exposed to one person, that is life and death. It could change everything for a family. So I saw some pretty nasty comments on social media about some of our bylaw actions, which they were doing their job. And I'm sorry, but there's two sides to every story. Sometimes we're not privy to share a side depending on where the investigation is going. But at the end of the day, we need to trust and support that, although it may sound harsh and it may sound wrong, but the bylaws there and those charges and those prices against those charges are approved. That's just what it is in every municipality. So what I was wondering, is there an opportunity for us to do almost like a refresh reminder why we're in such good shape, because we are following those rules. I know it's difficult. I know it's hard, but when people hear that, someone, was in a park and we're standing there doing, they're not supposed to. You need to walk through and go. You're not supposed to linger and sit on a bench. I know people want to do that, but you can't, because eventually crowds our nature is to become, social, and, so a wrong thing can happen. And, maybe, you're young and strong, and I'm not sure what this influenza, this very unique pandemic, do you want to give that to somebody who isn't? So basically, I was wondering, Mr. Mayor, can we ask communications if they can do almost like a refresh kickstart, maybe a different message, a same message in a different way, something unique, something refreshing, so that we're doing this to keep you safe. I know it sounds harsh, but anyway, that's
Councillor, before I'm going to ask that question to Michelle, I need a motion to extend.
Oh.
Councillor Gardner, second. Councillor Gallo, all those in favor? Hands up. Opposed? Councillor Gardner, you're opposed? No? Okay, sorry. All right. I just wanted to make sure your hand stayed up there a bit long. So, all right. Councillor Humphreys, Michelle, can we, I guess Councillor Humphreys is asking, can we do, and I don't know if you guys are, I believe you guys are still kind of putting out the information. Could we maybe do a refresh and put out the information in regards to our park closures and what is expected of our residents and what's allowed and not allowed under the emergency orders?
Through you, Mayor Marakis, yes, definitely we can do that. We have been pushing out messaging on social about park closures and about facility closures, but we can definitely do a refresh, create some animated videos as well, and we can definitely get the message out there again.
That's wonderful. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think that's great. I mean, I think a fresh look at it, a fresh way of saying the same thing. Hopefully our residents will say, yeah, I got to remember, I know we've been blessed that no one's been, hopefully the majority is not affected, but there's a reason for that. We're following the rules and we're making sure we do that. So I really appreciate that, guys. Thank you. The other thing I wanted to share with everyone is that the Aurora Farmers Market is hopefully going to open. It'll be a little different. I want to thank staff, Ms. McDougall and John Furman, our bylaw, Alex Weir, and the team. I just want to thank, I hope, and Tasha, of course. I want to thank the team that it was very positive in terms of wanting to make this happen this year. So it'll be different. I don't know what it'll totally look like, but it will be a very, very safe market. And the opening day is, if all goes well and things come through, it's not set in stone or anything yet, but it's May 23rd. And of course, saying that, I know we mentioned it, but not having Jan there will be difficult. Will be difficult. So that was surprising. Just a little bit of shock for everyone. But we're gonna miss her for sure. But she'll be there. And that's it. Sorry.
Thank you, Councillor Humphreys. Councillor Thompson, new business? Nope. Councillor Kim? Nope. Councillor Gallo, I'll go back to you. I don't know why it takes three clicks to get your mute to come on. Go ahead.
I just, you had reminded me in terms of decision-making that I had asked whether a report is coming on the decisions that have been made as a result of declaring an emergency that would have normally been made by council, and it was a few weeks ago, so I'd like to get a sense of when council could expect to have that.
Definitely. Mr. CEO?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. There is not very much to put on that report, but we will endeavor to get it into a May cycle for sure.
Councillor?
I missed that.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Go ahead, Mr. CEO.
Sorry, through you, Mr. Mayor. There isn't a lot of decisions, just to reassure council, there isn't a lot of decisions that fall into that credit category, but I will endeavor to get a report on the May cycle.
Councillor?
Okay, I just, considering that we've been very successful with these meetings, I'm hopeful that we can move towards a new normal where we can, make decisions as we have been making, because it seems to be working.
Agreed. Thanks, Councillor. I look forward to that report as well. Councillor Gilliland, you had something else to add? Go ahead.
Thank you. It was just more or less kind of adding to what Councillor Humphreys had said about the communication, and one of the confusions is which trails are open and which trails are not. And I am happy there is a part there on the new web information about the trails. However, it doesn't really specify the Oak Ridges Trail Association trails and what that means. And I know that there's some confusion about whether the trails within, not necessarily Shepherd's Bush, because there's two separate trails. There's Shepherd's Bush Conservation area that is run by the Lake Simcoe Conservation Authority. And then there's the Oak Ridges Trail System, which is much lower land. And there's a lot of confusion as to whether or not people can walk on those or not. And I would like to have some sort of clarity posted on the website and some of that other communication. I was hoping to have a little bit of an update from Ms. Van Leeuwen, and perhaps you have an update for me through you, Mr. Mayor, to Ms. Van Leeuwen.
In regards to which trails are open and closed?
Trails Association trails.
So I've done, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I've done a little bit of research and I have seen no information that the Oak Ridges Trail is closed at this point in time.
Councillor?
Perfect. That was the answer I was looking for. It's kind of what I determined. There was some confusion because there is a Parks is closed sign right in front of the entrance of the trail of Oak Ridges Trail System. I can't remember the street name, but it's the new homes just south of Stone Road, Strawberry Gate or something or other. And so it was very confusing for residents whether or not they could enter into that trail. And I don't know if it's because there's just a bench right beside the opening of the trail, but it's not a park. It's just a bench right beside the opening of a trail. And there was a lot of confusion from some of the residents whether or not that was open or closed. So perhaps maybe operations might want to take a look at that sign placement. Maybe it's not an appropriate placement, and just be a little more clear on the communication online that the Oak Ridges trails at this time are open. That would be great.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Van Leeuwen, you'll take that into consideration. You'll and I guess discuss that with Michelle and with the communications and everyone involved, and we'll make sure we get out the right information out for everyone to have a perfect understanding of what's closed and what's not.
Yes, certainly I would. I can work with Michelle. I believe it would have been our operations team that would have placed the signs there. So we will also work with operations communications to determine and make sure that it's clear and for our residents.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
So no more new business? Okay. I just wanted to add, we have had 6 related deaths due to COVID-19. To me, that's 6 too many. And, it's sad. Anytime I get a report coming in that states that another Auroran has lost their life due to this pandemic, in any regards, any life, obviously we get very sad and heartbroken for any of our residents. But when those emails come in, it's unbelievable, and it's very heartbreaking to see them and know that someone's lost their life to this. And I know that especially with Chartwell, they've done the frontline workers have done an incredible job there working through it. And I can say that some of the businesses, even other residents that have come out to help out to do what they can, whether it's to help with meals, to go out, help with delivering some prescriptions, to give a helping hand is incredible. And we do live in an extraordinary community that everyone's willing to step up and help. And I just want to throw out my thanks to each and every one of our residents, businesses that come out and are supporting and helping and volunteering and giving their time to help those that are in need at this time, because we need to do this all together. And we say it time and time again, from our Prime Minister to the Premier, right down to us here. You know what? No one's going to be left behind. We're all going to work together to do what we can to help each and every one of us, because it's going to take a team to get through this, and it's not going to be easy, but we will get through this. And so, it's a tough time, but we'll do this. So, council, I am going to ask for a. Oh, sorry, I'm at bylaws. I get a motion. Councillor Thompson, second. Councillor Kim. Any comments or questions on the bylaws? Councillor Gillen, you have your hand up. No? Okay. Mr. Clerk?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Sorry to interrupt. I think we just need with the result of the R1 report from tonight, Councillor Gallo's amendment, I think we need a similar amendment on the water bylaw. I suggest it could be friendly, just to have the correct rates that are being passed by council tonight. And basically,
and that's for bylaw A.
yes, that would be, yeah, I think the amendment would be that the rates remain at the break-even point until the end of June 2020.
Council, is everyone okay with that? That's a friendly amendment. We're just adding it in because we basically already passed it earlier. Is everyone good with that? Okay. Mr. Clerk, we're all good with that. So we'll add that in as a friendly amendment.
We'll add that in, and then we can still vote on all the bylaws together if council would like that.
I'm not seeing anyone that wants to split them. Does anyone want to split any of them? No. Okay. So we have a mover, we have a seconder. I will call the vote.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Record a vote for the bylaws on tonight's agenda. Councillor Gardner, how do you vote?
I need you to say that again, Councillor Gardner. Sorry, I had you on mute. Go ahead.
Yes.
Thank you, Councillor Thompson.
Councillor Thompson?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kim.
Yes.
Councillor Gilliland,
Yes.
Councillor Humphreys,
Yes.
Mayor Maracus,
Yes.
and Councillor Gallo.
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right. Can I get a motion to adjourn? Oh, sorry, confirming bylaw. I'm jumping. It's been a long night. Moved by Councillor Thompson, seconded by Councillor Gilliland. Call the vote.
Record a vote for the confirming bylaw on tonight's agenda. Councillor Gardner,
Yes.
Councillor Humphreys,
Yes.
Councillor Thompson,
Yes.
Councillor Gilliland,
Yes.
Councillor Gallo,
Yes.
Councillor Kim,
Yes.
and Mayor Maracus.
Mayor Maracus?
I didn't, sorry, got choppy there. So yes.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, sorry about that. Okay.
I didn't hear you. I was waiting for you to say my name.
The motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Motion to adjourn. Councillor Kim, Councillor Gilliland, all those in favor, hands up. Opposed? That carries. We are adjourned. Thank you, everyone. Have a good rest of the week. Stay safe and stay healthy.
Thank you. Thanks, Tom. Bye. Bye. Sorry.